Hello, and welcome back to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, your premier Legend of the Galactic Heroes recap podcast. Currently embroiled in the hot flames of terrifyingly partisan politics, we've got front row ticket seats to the grinding death of democracy here, and we're ready and willing to use the 1988 OVA to contextualize our truly confusing times. As always, I'm your host, G, and sitting right next to me in the bleachers, and by right next to me, I mean approximately 20 miles away, is my co-host, Iro.
Hi, yeah, I'm still here for the final episode of Season 1 of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yes, exactly. We are here to discuss the final two episodes of Legend of the Galactic Hero Season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least what I think is Season 1.
Yeah,
my
according
understanding.
to Wikipedia, anyway.
Yes.
Right, so that's episode 25, The Day Before Destiny, and episode 26, Farewell Distant Days.
Only two episodes, but an interesting couple of episodes here.
Yeah, I'm glad we're back to saying it's an interesting couple of episodes after the last three episodes.
Indeed. Let's just roll right into it, because there are some things to unpack here. So, we kick off with episode 25. Kircheis still out there in space, winning battles and shit, when we find out that Geiersberg has finally been captured.
Yep, time for Kircheis to come on back and debrief and report about everything and ask Reinhard what was with the nukes.
Yes, the moment.
Maybe take a shower.
Yeah, get some R&R before confronting your childhood best friend about the war crime he has committed. And so we have the moment of reckoning where Kircheis confronts Reinhard about what really happened at Westerland. Bless Kircheis, being him, trying to knock some moral sense into our friend Reinhard here. Basically say, hey, letting people get nuked.
It's not cool. Not okay.
Very bad.
I wasn't really expecting Reinhard to just straight up cop to it, straight away.
I feel like in some ways I kind of saw this coming. Like, regardless of how Reinhard actually felt, or however, culpable he was in the Westerland incident, so to speak, I feel like Reinhard being who he is, kind of the image and the, kind of the facade of impenetrable ruler that he is.
On some level, he has to say, yes, I chose to do this.
Right.
He's just got to justify it to himself.
Exactly. Not only does he have to justify it to himself, but he has to justify it to everybody around him. What I think is striking about this is that Reinhard felt he even had to maintain this facade with Kircheis. I mean, this conversation in general is unlike any other conversation Kircheis and Reinhard have ever had.
Yeah, I mean, as it has been foreshadowed that, like, at some point Kircheis will have to, truly grapple with Reinhard over, like, questionable tactics or just generally unethical actions. This is kind of culmination of that. Where he straight up says, like, if you're trying to become the Kaiser, but what at this point, what is the difference between your actions and that of Rudolph?
Right, essentially at what cost? And I realize that is kind of a narrative cliche, the whole, if you kill the bad guy, you'll be just as bad as him. Like, personally, I think that plot device is bullshit.
Right.
But I do think there is some merit to what Kircheis is saying here. Because regardless... Okay, so here's the thing, right? There is going to be a lot of discussion, and I'm sure there have been many conversations about Reinhard's rise to power, and whether the ends justified the means, whether his actions were validated by the results that they brought. And at least for now, I think things are going to keep going well for Reinhard in the face of increasingly morally questionable actions. But I think what Kircheis is trying to pose here is this is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
sure, you didn't drop a nuke on anybody this time, but
You allowed it to happen.
you let it happen, and who's to say what happens next time if you've already let it happen once? And that's kind of the thing about this conversation, right? Reinhard immediately rebukes Kircheis.
Yeah, he pulls rank. He just straight up pulls rank on Kircheis.
Yeah,
He's
for
like,
the first time.
yeah, there's a good shot, maybe a little on the nose, where Kircheis talks about how the blood is already on your hands, and we see the like light shining through the wine, creating a red stain on Reinhardt's hands.
Oh it's a
A bit,
little
a bit too
in your
much.
face,
A bit
but
much.
also it's the exact kind of absurd space
Right.
operatic kind of thing that
Yes.
Legend of Galactic Heroes kind of makes work, especially the Empire stuff. But
The
yeah.
one thing I also really liked about the scene was after Kircheis leaves without touching his wine, we see Reinhardt just drink from that second glass.
Yes, who can say what that entails in the
I know.
future, but
Yeah.
no, but I agree with you is, you know, I is this the start of a problem for Reinhard? I'll put it this way.
Maybe. Even if it's not, I think that's just a really good bit of like wordless characterization.
Oh, totally, totally. And I mean, I kind of want to get into this conversation more because, for better or worse, this episode doesn't have a whole ton left to work with.
There's a lot of flashback to stock footage of Reinhard and Kircheis' relationship.
Yes, this episode has a lot of it, and in the context of when this originally aired, I don't exactly recall how Legend of the Galactic Heroes aired originally, but I suppose if it's been 20 or so episodes since we last saw the foundation of Kircheis and Reinhardt's relationship, maybe it was a good recap for the audience at the time.
Kircheis hasn't really been too much of an entity for the past several episodes.
Right, that's kind of the other thing.
Because at the start of the Lipstadt League, they basically sent him off to go do stuff, and he did a bunch of stuff off screen.
I guess it's a necessary thing to do. I don't know if the amount of screen time they spend on it is entirely necessary.
It could have been perhaps better edited.
Yes. I mean, maybe they just literally did not have the time or the budget to do it, but
maybe.
Still, it's kind of a weird thing, the recaps, because not only is there a lot of them, but I feel like in the past, Legend of the Galactic Heroes kind of operated on this assumption that its viewers were not stupid. That people were smart enough to get what they were trying to imply in the subtext. And not only that, but that its viewers would have a good enough memory to understand how important Reinhard and Kircheis' relationship is. Mm-hmm. So, in that regard, having this kind of almost weekly Shonen Jump anime adaptation-esque flashback.
Last time on Bleach.
Yeah,
Let's recap the entire show for the first half of the episode.
Right, it's a little uncharacteristic, but nevertheless.
Yeah, the next scene kind of after Flashback Land is Reinhard looking at old voice recordings of Annerose, right? And seeing that even she is saying to never lose sight of what's important to you, and also make sure to talk to Kircheis and listen to what he has to say.
Yes, it's highly convenient voicemails that have been left by Annerose that we find Reinhard listening to.
Highly convenient, but also consistent with what we've seen so far.
Yes, totally.
But man, in his current state, the one thing he has to say to all this is, "Oh, I guess my sister values Kircheis more than me."
Yes, Reinhard has maybe the worst possible takeaway from Annerose's voicemails, which maybe speaks volumes of the current mental state Reinhard is in.
Yeah.
To kind of return to the conversation, I think the thing that makes that conversation so impactful is that up until now, Reinhard has never felt the need to maintain the facade even in front of Kircheis.
Yeah.
Kircheis
he's always the one he could let his guard down in front of, who could speak frankly in front of.
Right. It's the idea that no matter how hard or how necessary the facade was for Reinhard to maintain, he always had that form. He always had Kircheis as an outlet, essentially. And the idea of even maintaining this kind of cold, harsh, autocratic relationship with Kircheis, this idea of Kircheis, remember your place. How dare you call me out, Kircheis, even though I literally keep you at my side because I want you to do that, but now I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes to how important Kircheis is, not just for Reinhard as an emotional linchpin, but also as a voice of, I don't know if reason is the right word. I suppose theoretically Oberstein is supposed to be Reinhard's voice of reason, but I think Kircheis supplies a different type of reason that is sorely lacking in the rest of Reinhard's cabinet.
He brings the heart, I guess, is the way to put it.
Right. It's kind of what we've talked about in the past, that Kircheis is the one who thinks about the real human elements of any political action, of any military tactic.
Yep, but speaking of voice of reason, Oberstein, he gets an audience with Reinhardt to basically say, stop treating Kircheis especially, stop giving him special treatment.
Right, so Oberstein basically shows up and is like, this is unbefitting of a ruler, essentially. Which I think is quite funny.
For a number 2.
Right. Oberstein says there's no room for a number 2, which I think is quite funny considering how hard Oberstein
basically.
Right, how hard Oberstein is trying to maneuver into that number 2 spot.
Yeah.
Additionally, we kind of skipped over it, but before this conversation, we find out that Lichtenlad has essentially discovered that there is a vacuum of power now that the Lippstadt League has been taken down.
Right, because the Lippstadt League represented the 2 other main lineage candidates for the Kaiser.
Right. So with them gone, essentially, Lichtenlad is the last one still in power. And we hear news that he's decided to clean up loose ends and deal with Reinhard before he becomes a problem too.
Potentially, at any rate.
Yes. And here's the part where now I start to wonder how much of this episode and the next are actual political machinations of Reinhardt's enemies and how much is Oberstein capitalizing on an extremely valuable moment.
Indeed. So, it's time to meet with the POWs, right? Is that what's coming up next?
The POWs?
No, hang on. Reinhardt's meeting with the, where he calls in all of his admirals.
Oh, yeah, so he calls in all the admirals because upon hearing the news of Lichtenlad's, sudden and entirely unexpected, supposed betrayal, he calls all his admirals together to discuss, essentially what to do next.
Yeah. Including meeting with Admiral Fahrenheit, who basically says, you'll listen to me now, right? And Admiral Fahrenheit says, yep. I'll serve the Empire. And also important is Kircheis is no longer permitted to stand next to Reinhard in this meeting room.
Yes, that is arguably the most impactful and important thing to take away from this scene, is that Reinhard basically takes Oberstein's advice to distance himself from Kircheis, put Kircheis back, amongst the ranks of the other admirals that, he commands. And so we have Kircheis on his way to the admirals' meeting where the security tell him, sorry, you can't carry your sidearm anymore. No admiral is allowed to.
Yep, and I was ordered to not make any exceptions.
Right, so we kind of see the beginning of the machinations to distance Kircheis from Reinhard. And then once he actually steps into the throne room, even more notably is Kircheis is not standing by Reinhardt's side. He is,
Yep. Standing with Bittenfield and Mittermeier.
Yes,
The
yes,
low
he is.
class admiral.
Right. He's sitting with the rest of the class.
Mm-hmm.
And both of these actions reveal kind of magnitudes about, like, honestly, what it really reveals to me isn't just the gulf in Kircheis and Reinhardt's relationship, but to me is also how much Reinhardt is listening to Oberstein.
Yeah.
Like,
he was willing to immediately take this advice.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting angle, I think, that for all of Reinhardt's talk about I'm going to be the ruler, I'm going to take over the stars, I will make the universe mine, there's a whole lot of listening exclusively to Oberstein's advice that we're kind of seeing in these last couple of episodes. And in all fairness, from Reinhardt's standpoint,
I mean, a good ruler should surround himself with smart people.
Yes, but not only that, but it's also because Oberstein is getting results.
Yeah.
Maybe not through the nicest of methods, but he is getting results for Reinhardt.
Yeah.
Which, theoretically, Kircheis is doing too by winning all those dang battles.
Honestly, Oberstein making this statement right now is the perfect time to make it, because Reinhardt is already upset and emotional about Kircheis. So,
yes.
Oberstein coming in and saying, demote him, basically.
Right.
Demote him in your heart.
Yeah. Yes, demote him in his heart. That's a very good analogy for it. One of the last takeaways I want to mention before we get to the final scene of this episode is, despite this gulf, Kircheis still believes in Reinhardt.
There is.
We have Kircheis thinking to himself that, okay, Reinhardt's maybe not himself right now. Maybe he's kind of a little stressed out, but I know Reinhardt. He's my friend. We've known each other for years.
Been through this.
He'll come around. I just have to wait. And
won't be waiting that long.
Yeah, not a whole ton of time to wait, because.
So Reinhardt meets with Ansbach, the Prince Braunschweig's number 2 man, who swore after pouring poison wine into Braunschweig's mouth that he would send Reinhardt to hell.
Indeed.
So he wheels in Braunschweig's preserved corpse,
which is hell of a weird gift to bring to anybody, really.
Well, bring me the heads of my enemies.
Yes, I suppose so, but look, once this scene happens, we should just get into the scene so I can start to nitpick it.
Oh yeah.
So Ansbach shows up with Braunschweig's corpse. Everybody's like, "Oh, hey, look, it's Braunschweig's corpse." That's funny. And then Ansbach starts to dig through the corpse's torso cavity.
Just opens it up, casually opens it up.
Yeah, it's a freaking duffel bag, and then whips out a fucking bazooka.
Yeah, this square-looking rocket tube.
Yeah, just this motherfucking space bazooka that he somehow managed to fit in Braunschweig's apparently very cavernous chest cavity. It's
just stuck it in there. I mean, these guys are supposed to be POWs. I don't know how he smuggled that in, let alone what's coming next.
Yeah, it's a whole lot. And the first time, seeing it for the first time is it's so hard to even comprehend initially, because I was expecting some kind of setup. I was expecting some kind of trap.
When he's bringing that corpse in on a cart, I'm like, there's something there. There's probably a bomb or something.
Yeah, I expected a bomb, or maybe he hid a gun in there, a pistol.
Yes.
But no, a fucking bazooka.
It's so much.
Oh my gosh, we'll get into this later, but it seems the FPA is not the only one that needs to work on their security detail. Indeed. Because how one gets a fucking bazooka into the throne room of Grand Admiral Reinhard von Lohengram perhaps is worth questioning.
And he gets a shot off.
Yeah, and that's
pulls
the
that
end.
Trigger.
Yeah, and the episode ends right there. on the biggest cliffhanger possible.
Yeah, I think this is the one time we like straight up just had to go into the next episode.
Yes, we made the executive decision this time to just roll right into the next episode because it was just such an absurd, totally unexpected way to end that episode.
And there were a lot of flashbacks, so really it was like half of an episode.
Also that too. Not exactly the most jam-packed episode. But man, can we just talk about the logistics of smuggling a bazooka as your assassination weapon of choice?
Pull a lot of stuff out of that corpse to fit that in there.
If the corpse is that big or that hollow, why didn't you just fucking stuff it full of space C4 or Zephyr particles or literally anything other than a bazooka?
Bazooka sends a statement, man.
I mean, it does, but you know what also sends a statement? Like a machine gun or a bomb or
battle axe, crossbow.
Anything, literally anything. Like, let's just say, let's say Ansbach is fucking mastermind genius. Ansbach here is like, okay, I gotta avenge my lord. I gotta kill Reinhard. How am I gonna do this?
He reaches into the chest cavity, pulls out a bottle of wine. I brought you some wine, my lord.
It's just okay. So let's say Ansbach's like, shit, I can only fit a bazooka-sized item inside of this chest cavity.
It's just a Resident Evil 4 inventory puzzle.
Right, like if it's like a Resident Evil inventory puzzle. It's like, okay, I got 16 squares to work with. What do I fit in here? Do I fit in, I don't know, 16 grenades? No, how about just a bazooka?
Not a gun.
Like, you could have fit like at least 3 handguns in there, man. Yeah. You could have like been double fisting pistols at Reinhard.
Just akimbo the whole room.
Yeah,
spin in a circle, pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, shit. I know you want to kill Reinhard, but why don't you just fucking kill everybody? Again, just rig that whole body with bombs. Because look, if your excuse is, oh, but it'll get caught by the security detail, apparently fucking not, because you thought a bazooka was gonna work, and it did.
Yeah, exactly.
It's even in the episodes that are, I was gonna say less dramatic, but that's not even the right word. Even in the episodes of Legend of the Galactic Heroes that are less exciting, somehow the Empire, especially the Empire, manages to find up ways to ratchet up the melodrama in the most unbelievable ways possible.
So it does. I did think this after watching the episode that maybe security was compromised somehow.
Yes,
because of what immediately follows.
Well, that's a thing. I was going to save that conversation for later. 26, because there are a number of things that happened in episode 26 that make this worth bringing it up.
Well,
so
as we move into episode 26.
So yes, let's just roll right into episode 26. So we jump back in just after Ansbach's fired off a shot, but we don't know what the target was. Who could it be? Probably Reinhard.
Reinhard.
Spoilers, it was at Reinhard.
But the shot goes wide.
Yes, it just hits a fucking wall next to the throne, right behind
the throne.
Yes, like right behind Reinhard. And look, I get it. Maybe video games don't exist in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, but come on, man. Everybody knows that when you get the rocket launcher, you aim at the feet.
Yep. I mean, you probably was aiming at the feet.
Oh, I don't know, man. That angle in that last shot, it looks like he's aiming pretty high. I feel like Ansbach was making.
He's standing lower than Reinhard.
Oh, I don't know. I think Ansbach was making a rookie mistake. I think he was like trying to aim for Reinhard's torso or his head or something.
He was nervous after digging through a corpse.
Look, I'm just saying. Everybody knows rockets don't do location-specific damage. You always let the splash damage finish him off.
It's true.
And maybe Ansbach would have known this if Quake or Doom existed in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, but perhaps, thankfully, it did not, because the shot goes wide, and we find out
Kircheis.
It was Kircheis jumping in with the save.
Yeah, standing close enough to run in and push that thing out of the way and struggle with Ansbach.
Unfortunately, that bazooka was not Ansbach's only weapon. In fact, Ansbach arguably had an even better assassination weapon than the bazooka as his backup, which is this fucking crazy laser ring, which he just used.
Just like punches Kircheis in the chest.
And then blasts the fucking shit out of him.
Yeah. So, like, my quick and dirty explanation for why this was certainly something that's small.
Why was the ring the backup?
Right. Although, like, it probably only has charge for 1 or 2 shots. That's all I got. That's all I can make up on the fly.
Look, before we get into the real unyielding tragedy of this episode, I just want to iterate again. The ring, way better assassination weapon.
Ansbach has a, like, actually clandestine killer laser gun on his hand that nobody noticed. That, like, that conceivably I could see security not noticing, but also pulled this bazooka out of the corpse.
Opted for the bazooka. It's like, oh man, it's like when you have 2 guns in a shooter. You have, like, the regular gun, and then you have the rocket launcher with 1 ammo, and you use the rocket launcher on, like, the weakest, most basic enemy.
On, like, a head crab.
Yes, on, like, a head crab at point blank. And you somehow still miss. Look, I'm not. Look, I guess I'm broadly happy that the assassination attempt failed, but I'm just saying, Ansbach, you could have gone up there and pretended to shake hands with Reinhard. Yeah. You could have patted him on the back. You could have, like, been like, "Hey, Reinhard, bro fist, dude, let's do it." You could have done so many things to get within point blank distance of Reinhard. Like, I get it, it's way harder to aim a ring than a bazooka. Then again, is it? Like, at the distance he was shooting...
Your fists, yeah.
Look, they already do the Sieg Heil in the Empire. I'm just saying, Ansbach could have done the old Sieg Reinhard and, like, fucking blasted him with that laser ring.
Yeah, he totally could have.
But... alas.
Instead, he blasts Kircheis.
Yes, instead he fucking kind of brutally blasts the shit out of... Yeah, in the chest and then in the neck.
Yeah, like the second shot just slices Kircheis' neck open.
Yeah, it's... I mean, it's a rightfully stunning moment because the other admirals jump in and restrain Ansbach, but it's too little too late.
Is on the ground.
Yeah, we have Kircheis quickly bleeding out on the floor, having just saved Reinhard's life, and...
Yep. And I'm just saying, like, if you had a sidearm, could have shut Ansbach first.
Yes, I think very, like... I don't know. Do we want to get into the Oberstein conspiracy stuff now, or do we want to wait till after the end of the episode and we can compile all the shady shit Oberstein does this episode?
We can go save to the end.
All right, we're gonna save our tribunal of Oberstein for the end of this episode. So, tragically, Kircheis dies here in what is a kind of stunning,
arms. Yeah, didn't
kind
see
of a
this coming.
stunning
maybe I did
moment.
For the record, I don't think it was on a recorded podcast. Perhaps it was a post-episode discussion that we were having. Totally called it.
Yes, I will corroborate here.
I said, "What if Kircheis eats it?" And you said, "No way."
Look, I did not say no way.
I know. You did not. It's true.
To defend myself, I broadly agree that Kircheis was going to die eventually. I feel like that was inevitable because narratively,
absolutely.
If
Reinhard, it's too useful.
Yes, because if Reinhard has to truly become the monster, I feel like he is guaranteed to become. Not only did Kircheis have to die, but Kircheis had to be removed from the equation because there is no Kircheis being the good moral soul that he is if he does not oppose Reinhard once Reinhard starts to go down the slippery slope.
Yep. And
your options there were either for Kircheis to defect and join the FPA, which, unlike Merkatz, I could never see Kircheis doing that because
too much personal loyalty for that.
He's too loyal. So then your other option is, to kill Kircheis. So I thought they would save this for like the end of season 2.
Right, not
I
season
did not
one.
expect them to pull the trigger this soon on Kircheis. I think I literally said to Iro here, I don't think they're gonna pull some fucking Game of Thrones shit on Kircheis. I was wrong. They totally pulled some fucking Game of Thrones shit on Kircheis.
We were actually like shouting at that screen.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we watched it a few days ago. We've had some time to internalize it, but yeah, kind of the first big death of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yeah, not to like discount Jessica, but she was more of a side character.
Yes, of course, not to discount Jessica's death, but Kircheis is. I mean, let's be honest. In terms of like his impact,
he was the like third most important character in this show.
Yes, totally. And I mean, up till now, Reinhard and Kircheis, that's an inseparable duo. It's not just Reinhard von Lohengrin. It's Reinhard von Lohengrin and Siegfried Kircheis.
Yeah.
But also, I think, in grand Legend of the Galactic Heroes tradition, this is the story understanding that with Westerland, they have crossed a line that they cannot go back.
Right.
And they have introduced an entirely new status quo. And that status quo for the Empire, that status quo for who Reinhard is now, that can no longer exist in conjunction with Kircheis as he is.
Something that Kircheis could just not abide by.
Right.
So,
and, we kind of have Kircheis, giving his last words to Reinhard, which is, was it make the universe yours?
Please win the universe and
please
tell Lady Annerose that I kept my promise.
Yeah. I mean, Kircheis is a true brother to the end.
Yeah. Except his promise was to like keep Reinhard on the right path, wasn't it? And so, oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, there are, as tragic as Kircheis' death is here, you could argue that maybe there was some bad wording here in
probably
our very close friends' final moments. I feel like, look, I don't want to tell Kircheis what he should say in his dying moments. I'm just saying, if I were Kircheis and I was bleeding out and I had Reinhard's ear one last time, I'd say to Reinhard, "Don't be a dick," or something. Don't kill kids. Whatever you do, Reinhard.
Don't shoot your own dude.
Whatever you do, Reinhard, promise me you won't murder children. That's highly specific. We'll get to that later. But yeah, so with Kircheis gone, kind of things are kind of thrown into disarray for everybody else. We have a meeting amongst
Ansbach, by the way, like takes his poison pill that he had.
Yes.
So cannot be questioned.
Yeah, and we have a meeting with the remaining admirals, basically, specifically Sans Oberstein, basically discussing, okay, what do we do next? This is weird.
Yeah. Yeah, what do we do? How do we make Reinhard von Lohengrin recover?
I mean, there's kind of a darkly humorous aspect to the admirals meeting, essentially saying, okay, so Reinhard's best friend is dead. He's very sad. He cannot be very sad. We need him to do stuff. How do we cheer him up? Mittermeier, do those funny impressions you're always known for, or Roenthal, start breakdancing or something. It's
Bittenfield, you know how to juggle, don't you?
It's just there's definitely like this panicked aspect of these admirals. They are deeply loyal to Reinhard because of the man Reinhard projects himself to be. But there's also kind of this very real aspect to this conversation where everybody knows how special Kircheis was to Reinhard. Maybe they were never there to listen to their conversations. Maybe they never fully grasped like how vital Kircheis was to keeping Reinhard on the relatively autocratic straight and narrow.
Sure.
But they are very aware that he was important.
Yes.
And
There's nobody who could replace Kircheis.
And yes, and things have taken a very dark turn. And we kind of have Royenthal and Mittermeier kind of taken up the kind of pseudo leadership spot for the admirals. They're kind of at the head of the table.
I do like how they did not invite Oberstein to this meeting, and then someone's like, "Shouldn't we ask Oberstein what to do?"
Yeah, and then the admirals are kind of like,
everyone's like, "That one, he kind of was caused some of this, but also, I guess we should ask him."
I mean, yeah, there's definitely an aspect of fuck no, I hate Oberstein, but also shit, Oberstein's the smartest of us.
Yeah.
But I do want to bring up, I do think this conversation is important because it speaks to the idea that once again, people in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, kind of like real life, kind of like history, people are rarely willfully stupid.
Right.
When bad things happen to people in history, it's usually not just because they're stupid and they make bad decisions. It's because of a variety of external factors and some internal factors as well that contribute overall to a situation that becomes unavoidable.
Yeah.
And the admirals here aren't stupid, right? They're not. At least they're not willfully stupid at first. They understand that something is really fishy here. And I think Royenthal, he doesn't go as far as accuse Oberstein of, being behind this or anything, but Royenthal very quickly surmises that Oberstein will capitalize on this as soon as possible.
Yeah, somehow.
Like, even if Oberstein didn't actually cause Kircheis' death, he will capitalize on this situation to the maximum of his capability. And fucking speak of the devil, because then like a soldier walks in, is like, by the way, Oberstein's here.
He wants to see you all.
And here's kind of where we see, I think, what I personally think is the indications that Oberstein is far more aware of. He's far more aware than he's letting on to both the admirals and Reinhard. What Oberstein does is he joins the meeting of the admirals, and he basically
just takes charge.
He takes. Not only does he take charge of the situation, but he immediately maneuvers to use Lichtenlad as the fall guy.
Yeah, like he says, the only person who would be trying to take Reinhard's life right now is Lichtenlad. Probably sees this as a rival, and he's trying to eliminate us, so he has consolidated all the power on himself.
Right.
Which, is true on some level. If Lichtenlad wanted to do that, it would be a totally logical action.
Yes, I think what makes Oberstein's actions here so devious is again, the Oberstein equals Kissinger analogy working here, where Oberstein understands realpolitik, and he understands that the best lies have a kernel of truth in them. It would be easy enough to, maybe we'll start to get into this. It would be easy enough for Oberstein to kill Kircheis if that was his only goal. If it was just to get Kircheis out of the way once and for all, that's a simple enough thing to do. Killing a single person a single person if you don't care about the consequences, as Ansbach shows. Well, as Ansbach almost showed, remarkably easy. Mm-hmm. Killing a person and then getting away with it and then making it benefit you,
very difficult.
That's a lot more difficult. And I think what Oberstein does here masterfully is not only does he get everybody on his side to rush back to Odin to deal with Lichtenlad, but he completely sidesteps any accusations or suspicions from the other admirals.
Yeah, Royenthal straight up asks, couldn't this be a false accusation they're making on Lichtenlad? And then Oberstein just keeps talking and doesn't answer that question.
Right. I think this is a very notable, and again, I feel like conversations like these are a test from Legend of the Galactic Heroes to see how close its viewers are paying attention. Because here's the thing. Because of the way Legend of the Galactic Heroes is, or has framed itself, has communicated with its audience, I could easily see them purposely writing the conversation so that every time Royenthal lobs like either an accusation or a suspicion at Oberstein, the way he just kind of verbally rolls over it and continues on with the subject at hand while essentially ignoring Royenthal's questions.
Yeah.
On one hand, I could almost see that being Legend of the Galactic Heroes' very, very subtle way of trying to already make you distrust Oberstein even more.
Mm-hmm.
But I could also see it being something that they want to kind of just seed for now, and then later they'll properly reveal it as a twist, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I could see that.
But
he still gets all the admirals to go along with his plan to just fly back to Odin and basically take over what remains of the government.
Yes. For all the talk of Reinhard gloriously defending the Empire against these outstart coups, the rebellion essentially ends with Reinhard starting his own coup, so...
But just a much faster and cleaner one, I guess.
I mean, with all the possible opposition taken out at this point,
Yep.
Not a whole lot left to stop you.
So everyone just straight up flies back to Odin, lands their ships at the capital. There's some great shots of old style banners and castles with just big spaceships flying right over them. And just arrest Lichtenlad for allegedly making an assassination attempt on Reinhard.
Yeah, it's...
Straight up say, we don't need proof.
Yeah, basically, I mean... You start to see some very dark turns in... Not only are you starting to see these dark turns in Reinhard, but you are starting to see some of these dark turns in the people who follow Reinhard.
Yeah.
Mittermeier specifically drops a line,
yes,
essentially saying that authority is for those who wield power. That is literally fascism 101.
Empire's always been basically fascist, so...
Right, but what I mean is that this is the same Mittermeier who ostensibly, at the end of the Lippstadt Rebellion, remember when they're walking through Geiersburg and they're tying up all the nobles, and Mittermeier is saying to Royenthal, yeah, the old era is done for, it's time for the new era where we're going to be in power and we're going to make it right. And
yeah.
And no less than 2 episodes later, Mittermeier is dropping fascism 101. It's a damn shame because I kind of liked Mittermeier. I thought he was maybe my favorite of the non-Kircheis admirals, but I don't know. This is dark turn Mittermeier.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically the admirals they land on Odin, take over the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Reinhard is made the next I don't know, what was Lichtenlad's position again? Grand Chancellor or some shit?
Something along those lines. I was gonna say Marquis, but no, that's just his noble rank.
I mean, essentially the title is the Vizier. That's what it really is, right?
It is, but I don't remember what the actual title is.
No, so until we remember the name, we're going to call that position Space Vizier. So Reinhard becomes the Space Vizier. Oh, Minister, sure. Same damn thing.
Imperial Prime Minister.
Sure, Imperial Prime Vizier. So, with all that taken care of, we finally have Oberstein talking, basically the first person to talk to Reinhard ever since Kircheis' death is predictably Oberstein.
And he basically says, hey, we captured Odin, also I talked to your sister.
I told your sister that Kircheis is dead, and predictably Reinhard doesn't take it very well, but also I feel like this is an aspect of Reinhard here, the part where he kept putting off telling Annerose about Kircheis' fate, that I feel like is a glimpse of that Reinhard that we see every now and then. The same Reinhard who's I don't want to go to the prince's birthday.
The, child Reinhard.
Yeah, the, very childish, kind of petulant Reinhard. Except it's kind of more tragic here. It's the...
Well, if I don't tell her, it didn't happen.
Yes, there's that aspect of Reinhard that is essentially doing the thing that 6-year-old kids do of, if I don't say it and if I don't admit it, it basically never happened, right? Which, I don't know, the fact that that is Reinhard's coping method. Again, I'm not going to say Reinhard is mentally immature or anything, but I think it does start to say some things about Reinhard's mindset without that guiding influence of Kircheis.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, Stein tells him, stop looking at the past, look towards the future.
Also, by the way, don't have number 2s. But by the way, I'll always be your number 2. But yeah, so we have Reinhard and Annerose to have a heart-to-heart.
And Annerose says, "Oh, I see. Now you've nothing left to lose."
Yeah, it's honestly kind of a harsh conversation from Annerose, I feel.
Yep. Yeah, a bit. Yes.
Like, again, not that I'm saying that it's not out of character, especially the way this conversation finally ends, but I guess I had always taken Annerose to be that kind of like generic anime caring older sister type character who was always gonna like
pure and
be there, pure and innocent, and the kind of person that
pat Reinhard on the head,
and like let him cry in her lap or something. But she honestly gets kind of real here, where I mean, as you said, she tells Reinhard that, oh, there kind of goes the last thing you truly cared about other than me. Now it's just us two. And
maybe we should stop talking.
Yeah, kind of. It's a little weird here where Annerose is like, maybe...
Almost a breakup.
Yeah, maybe we need to spend some time apart from each other. And here's the thing. I feel like the subtext I'm actually getting from that is, obviously, Annerose is super broken up about Kircheis' death.
Yes.
Like, we don't need to have that, like, cliche scene of her crying
a single tear falling from her eyes.
Threatening to throw herself from the balcony in grief. That's sort of like melodramatic thing. But obviously this hurts her because here's the thing. We don't need to see the scenes because, like, here's the difference between...
Because we know that's happening.
Yes, and to get to that, I feel like that's the difference between episodes 26 and 25. 25 felt like it had to use all these recaps to explain Kircheis and Reinhard's relationship. Whereas I feel like 26 is confident enough in its viewers that it doesn't need to explicitly spell out Kircheis and Annerose's relationship, how much they cared for each other. Mm-hmm. When Reinhard says, "Did you love Kircheis?" and we don't see her answer, I don't think we really need to see the answer, regardless of whether she says yes or no. Regardless if the love was romantic or platonic.
Yeah. Something's still there.
And obviously
we know that the grief is there. We don't need to necessarily see it explicitly.
Exactly, and I don't think Annerose is the kind of person who would blame Reinhard for Kircheis' death, but also I think Annerose's motivation to separate from Reinhard is also a desire to sequester herself away from just everything related to Kircheis, because,
on some level, also, I think she also knows that, like, Reinhard will try to latch on her on some level, like an emotional level in this time of grief for him.
I mean, yes, because here's the thing, right? Reinhard has essentially gotten as far as he has because he had two emotional crutches, Annerose and Kircheis. Mm-hmm. Now that one of them's gone, the other kind of sees the writing on the wall and
gets out a dodge.
Yeah. Because, and here's the thing, maybe it's some tough love. Maybe she realizes that, if I stick around, Reinhard's going to develop a really unhealthy dependence on me, isn't he?
Yeah.
And so,
not good for either of us.
Yeah.
So that is one thing I do want to bring up, the difference between now Reinhard's situation of he has nobody to lean on, really, in that sense. Whereas before, obviously he had Kircheis and Annerose on some level. But now he has to be full on, Galactic Emperor.
Yes.
Perfect God. Whereas Yang has kind of engendered a situation where he can be frank and open about all of this stuff with basically his entire team.
Totally. I mean, do we want to just jump to that conversation now, and then we'll get back to the rest of this episode?
That's basically the rest of this episode, isn't
Well,
it?
no, because, I mean, we haven't even got to the part where Reinhard starts killing kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, spoilers!
Speaking of Reinhard as, like, now having to present himself as an unstoppable ruler, Rheinethal's like, so what do we do with Lichtenland's family, since we've captured all of them? And Reinhard says, well, we can't just sentence the Prime Minister to death, offer him suicide. Which,
Yeah,
I don't know, kind of the same thing.
Basically the same thing. I mean, look, we've seen
It's a
enough
semantic difference.
I mean, yes, we've seen enough quote-unquote suicides in the Empire to know exactly what Reinhard is implying. And then, as if you hadn't doubted that Reinhard has finally, fully, not just gone down the slippery slope, but done a fucking, like...
Put some skis on. And...
Yeah, put some skis on, and is, like, trying to go for a jump. Is Rheinethal's like, okay, well, what do we do with his family? And he's like... exile the women and kill all the men above the age of 10. And Rheinethal's like, the men above 10?
Right.
And Reinhard just, oh so helpfully explains, well, I was 10 when I joined the military academy, so clearly 10 years old is the age at which you've made the important decisions in your life. So, kill all
of them over 10?
The men above the age of 10.
Yeah.
I think some of you, it's a great, great opportunity to call back to one of our old podcast titles. Oberstein would totally shoot a kid. Turns out we were wrong.
Yeah, Reinhard will totally shoot a kid or order kids to be shot, which is the same thing.
Yes, it's totally the same thing. Yes, even if Reinhard's not pulling the trigger, he's making the command. And it's.
I've shed plenty of blood for now. I'll shed more in the future. He says.
Yeah, it's really the lack of Annerose and the lack of Kircheis, I think, from here on out, we've kind of approached a new and kind of scary status quo for Reinhard as a character.
We were wondering what the status quo would be after just putting down these coup d'etats.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have all... Yeah, like, you guys who've been listening, have probably heard me repeatedly say, oh, Reinhard hasn't lost enough in this war. Like, he hasn't suffered enough like Yang has. I apologize. I'm sure all of you were just kind of waiting for this episode to happen. I think Reinhard has now officially lost basically everything. Like,
other than, like, his complete and total political power.
I mean, well, yes, that's a thing. Of course, Reinhard hasn't lost everything.
Yes.
Reinhard is now more powerful than he's ever been. But again, at what
things
cost?
That he truly cares about.
Like, here's the thing. Reinhard wants to be the Kaiser or whatever so bad, but the part of me that feels bad for Reinhard is the part of me that thinks that Reinhard would trade away all this power in an instant if it meant bringing back Kircheis.
Right. Yes.
Like Kircheis is truly, and now I kind of understand the Fujoshi fascination with Reinhard and Kircheis because their relationship really is so special. Like, as much as I love Yang Wenli, and as much as I love the friendliness he extends to all of his comrades, there truly is nothing on that level of what Reinhard and Kircheis had, and to take that away from him,
it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, and it will forever mark Reinhard for the rest of the series. He will never be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, I have to admit, once again, bravo, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. You have so dramatically changed the status quo in ways that I could have never predicted. That, again, 26 episodes.
Yeah, there's a lot more left.
We have a lot of Legend of Galactic Heroes left, and a lot of it is not going to have Kircheis.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I feel like I read stuff before we began this entire project, and before we watched D&T even, I feel like I saw people talking about Kircheis in such a way that made me naturally assume he would be there for the majority of the show.
Yeah, let's not get into speculation territory just yet. Yeah. We're going to save that for the second portion of this podcast.
Yes.
But let's just cap off the end of this episode so we can kind of get into our final thoughts here. So we finally cut back to Yang Wenli. kind of doing his young Wenli thing of, chilling out on the bridge, thinking about politics, as he is wont to do.
Uh-huh.
And specifically, we see that young Wenli talks about how scared he is.
Yes.
How genuinely frightened he is of just how fragile the FPA's democracy is now that Job Trunicht is more powerful than ever.
What good is a democracy if it gives power to men like that?
Exactly. It really speaks to this idea of like Young he truly believes in democracy. He truly wants to believe in the system, and that is why people like Job Trunicht scare him so much, because democracy, maybe just as easily as dictatorships, are so easy to corrupt, are so easy to abuse and take advantage of. It only takes one guy like Job Trunicht to totally invalidate all the good of democracy. And Yang Wenli is so aware of this.
Yeah.
And he kind of has a great line here that I think... I mean, obviously he's saying this in relation to Reinhard, but Young basically says that men who are ambitious and horrible often tend to be so out of a sense of duty to the human race.
Right.
That
he says both Rudolph, who founded the Empire, and the NSMC, who took over the FPA and caused so much pain and suffering, were both completely convinced of themselves that what they were doing was the right thing.
Right. And I think that statement in particular is going to echo far into Legend of the Galactic Heroes, especially with Reinhard. Because I think without Kircheis, without that moral, that moral guidance, it's only going to push Reinhard further into, I have to make the Empire great. I have to conquer the stars. Because
for Kircheis.
Not only for Kircheis, but now there's this aspect that I'm sure is going to gnaw at Reinhard, that if he fails, then
what will it have been for?
Why did Kircheis have to die then? Right. Like, if he does not succeed in taking over the galaxy, then in his mind, Kircheis' death will have been in vain. And that is a very dangerous mindset to have, and one that I am endlessly curious about where it's going to take our characters.
Indeed. And we also get one final interlude of Phezzan of basically Agent Rubinsky sending Boris Konev to spy on the Alliance, and sending his old number 2 to spy on Reinhard, I guess.
I mean, come on, whatever. Fucking
yeah.
Look,
I mean,
spoilers. Phezzan plotting sneaky shit.
Exactly.
Look, I'm not discounting that part of the episode. I'm just saying,
yes,
Phezzan is arguably
Phezzan.
Yeah. Like Phezzan gonna Phezzan, basically.
Yep.
I will say, a brief weird speculation. I kind of am curious about what direction they're going to take with Boris Konev's character, because
they say he knew Yang as a child or something.
Not only that, but Boris obviously does not seem into the idea of spying on Yang.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious how that's going to unfold, because as we've kind of seen with Bagdashu, Yang's pretty good at turning spies against their masters. And I'm curious what direction that will take. But yeah, with that kind of done, we kind of have Reinhardt's final thoughts alone. Truly alone. Yep. Basically alone with only... It's...
himself.
Yeah, with himself and truly only himself. I mean, we've said it a million times this podcast, but maybe the greatest tragedy for Reinhardt is when he's alone, he's truly alone now. There are no more secret confidants. There are no more emotional crutches. Reinhardt has to be in God Emperor mode 24/7, essentially, and I'm very curious what's that going to do to his mindset. I mean, you have that canned line of you wear the mask long enough, you become the mask, but I truly do wonder how long Reinhardt can hold on to who he was while still maintaining the facade before he loses himself in it. Luckily Reinhardt is a very emotionally stable person and is already looking for new emotional crutches, and he finds one in our friend Yang Wenli, where he basically fixates on Yang here at the very end, saying, Yang Wenli, will you be a good friend or a strong enemy?
I just, as long as you quench the thirst in my heart, it doesn't matter.
Which, talk about crazy exes, but
yeah, when you say end on a montage of everyone who's perished in the past 26 episodes.
Yeah, a surprising number of people, actually. Like, even if I don't remember all their names, it's a
lot of people die.
Yeah, the wheel of fate keeps turning, and that ends
another page in the history of the galaxy.
Yeah. And so that ends episode 26 of Legend of the Galactic Heroes and the first season.
Season 1, yeah.
It's
a lot.
It's a lot to take in. I have a couple topics here that I was writing that I wondered if we want to talk about, or if maybe we want to save that for the next section. Let me see here.
Are they closer related to these two episodes, or are they closer related to the season as a whole? Still need to do the Tribunal of Oberstein.
Yes, you know what? All right, yes, we need to talk about this. The Tribunal of Oberstein. Yes, thank you for reminding me. This is important. I apologize to everybody listening out there. Once we throw on the second section of this podcast, this might be a long podcast. Take breaks. So Oberstein, these last two episodes, Oberstein,
one shady motherfucker.
Oberstein, the whole last 10 episodes has been kind of a shady motherfucker, but he really ratcheted it up in this last few episodes, and the conclusion that Iro and I kind of started to arrive at by the end of episode 26 is, what if Oberstein knew about the assassination attempt? Or
he had Hauptmann on the inside of the Lipstadt League.
Yeah, or even more darkly, what if Oberstein orchestrated the assassination attempt?
Right. So my logic here was basically, Kircheis goes in to the meeting, and there's this whole scene about how security has increased enough that Kircheis, High Admiral Siegfried Kircheis, can no longer bring his sidearm in to see Reinhard.
Yes.
And also, because Oberstein talked to Reinhard and convinced him to lower Kircheis' standing, Kircheis is now standing below and not next to Reinhard. But also,
yes,
if the security is increased, how does Ansbach smuggle in 2 weapons, including a bazooka?
One of which is a spear. Yes. So, look, maybe we're going to look real foolish in a couple months, but I think we at least are convinced that if Oberstein did not at least orchestrate the assassination attempt, he was at least in some way complicit in it happening.
Yeah.
Now you're going to say, gosh, Oberstein really took a risk on letting Ansbach smuggle in 2 weapons to kill Reinhard. Because, look, if your plan hinges on Kircheis stopping the assassination, what if he's not fast enough, right?
Right.
What if he doesn't stop the assassination in time? Then good going, you just got, your lord killed. But also, this is Oberstein we're talking about.
Oberstein has seen the the fighting skills of Royenthal and Mittermeier firsthand. So when they saved Annerose.
Yeah. So, well, I think the way I eventually come down on it is Oberstein is just... Or here's the other way I approach it, is not that, Oberstein was such a convoluted, crazy genius that he somehow orchestrated this extremely convoluted plan to get Kircheis assassinated, when there were probably simpler ways to, politically discredit him.
I he saw an opportunity and took it.
But what I'm thinking is, the other way, I want to approach it, let's do a little Ace Attorney here. Let's reverse the mentality. Would Oberstein be not short-sighted? Would Oberstein really let security get that lax? Would Oberstein ever let somebody smuggle in a weapon? I feel like Oberstein is too smart. He's too competent to let a plan like that get as far as it did.
Right.
Like, this is Oberstein we're talking about. Oberstein, who, we're not going to get to it. At least in the OVA, orchestrates the Westerland stuff.
Right. Sends
Oberstein
Oberstein back to Lipstadt League.
Right.
Knowing...
Yes. This is the same Oberstein that lets Ovliser return to the Lipstadt League to sow even more dissent. This is the same Oberstein that immediately manipulates the rest of the admirals to arrest Lichtenlad. And this Oberstein that is this smart, this competent, this cunning, somehow lets a dude smuggle a bazooka into the throne room? It doesn't exactly add up.
Right.
And, it's... I don't know. Look, is Oberstein actually cruel and cold enough? Are his eyes actually that cold and calculating that he would just off Kircheis like that? I'm not 100% sure, but what I do think is that Oberstein is very opportunistic, he's very ambitious, and he's very untrustworthy.
And doesn't want Reinhard to, be falling prey to his emotions.
Right. Like, here's the thing. I don't think either of us think that Oberstein is going to betray Reinhard. At least not...
Sure.
I mean, not more than he already has.
I see no reason for him to, we're not expecting him to, shoot Reinhard in the back and gain, take the power. That's not... That doesn't fit Oberstein.
No, that's not Oberstein's MO.
But what does fit Oberstein would shoot another man in the back to allow Reinhard to take more power.
I think what we're seeing here is that Oberstein, even if this is truly the Oberstein that would assassinate Kircheis, this is still the Oberstein that is deeply loyal to Reinhard. Because I think, this is going to sound kind of creepy, but I think Oberstein sees the ruler Reinhard can become. And I think there's a part of Oberstein that wants to slowly and subtly groom Reinhard to become the best space despot he can be. Because he sees that Reinhard has all the traits there. Oberstein wouldn't groom or manipulate any politician, any ruler. He's doing this to Reinhard because Reinhard is the best man. He truly believes that Reinhard already is the best man to rule the Empire. He is charismatic. He is loved. He is intelligent. And now that Kircheis is out of the way, he is ruthless. And I think Oberstein sees that Reinhard only needs a few more pushes to truly embrace that role.
Yeah.
If anything, I think it's not, I guess, improper use of the word irony, but, definitely funny that Oberstein seems to frame Lichtenlad for everything when I think Oberstein, honestly, probably wants to be the next Lichtenlad, honestly.
Right. Yeah.
That second in command who's in the shadows, I think what Oberstein really wants is to hold the position he has with Reinhard, but continue to do that for the next 3 Kaisers.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Boy.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Show will go to that
I mean, I don't want to speculate too much because I want to save the wild speculation for, the next section, but I think we'll just leave it at that. And
even if Oberstein didn't orchestrate, he's still shady.
Yeah, totally. And you brought it up briefly, Iro, but I do want to come back to it just one more time before we close off because it is directly related to episode 26. But as little as we see of young Wenli, I do feel like his presence is important in this episode because it reinforces that contrast between Reinhard and Yang.
Yeah.
We talk about Reinhard having to wear the facade around everyone but Kircheis and Annerose, and that now without them, he's basically stuck wearing the facade 24/7. And you know what? Some of that is his fault. He decided to cultivate that image, to cultivate that illusion. And now that he has nobody left who's in on the joke, or not the joke, but the drama, the role that he's playing. Now he's stuck wearing the mask. And in some ways, that's maybe the most tragic takeaway from this episode. Whereas Yang would never have to worry about that because Yang is honest almost 24/7.
Yup, you can just
Like-
say, "Wow, I'm really scared about where we're headed right now, everyone."
Yeah, like Yang Wenli is the guy who gives speeches about, hey, this battle sucks, but also it's not worth dying for. This is the same Yang Wenli that tells Shenkop, hey, if you don't
go
play
along with our plan, we're just screwed, I guess.
right, like if you don't go along with this plan, I'm going to die. I need you to do your part. You know, this is the same Yang Wenli that tells Julian, kid, don't become a soldier. Like, please, don't be a soldier. It's not worth it. I became a soldier for the academic
money.
scholarship.
Yeah.
Like, it's true that it makes Yang Wenli quote unquote weaker. It's true that it means people respect Yang less and that Yang has less power overall in the FPA. But what it also means is that Yang Wenli has slowly but surely over the course of this season cultivated a reliable circle of people he's grown to rely on.
Yeah.
And
they can rely on him, and he can rely on them.
Exactly.
In ways that Reinhard cannot with his team.
And, you know, how that eventually plays out in the future, I think remains to be seen. But I think that contrast will eventually become the important deciding factor between the two.
Yeah.
But again, now we're going back into speculation territory, so we'll save that for the next section. But I just wanted to talk about that.
Yeah. Speaking of that next section.
Yeah, so on that merry note, we're going to end the first portion of this podcast and take a quick break. When we're back, we'll talk about our final thoughts for the season overall, and we'll do it with some extra guests in tow, so stay tuned. Welcome back to all of you still listening to us ramble about Legend of the Galactic Heroes. We're back from the break to discuss the season overall and generally shoot the shit about what we've seen.
It's definitely been a few seconds and not almost a week.
No, we took a quick break and we are back and ready to podcast. You know, well, let's just get into it. While I generally prefer to keep my crew lean and quick, you know, fast and mobile, ready to go at any time.
And why am I here?
You know, sometimes you just need to throw bodies into the fray.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, we have received a couple of recruits. First is none other than the GLORIO Chat's host, Gel.
Excuse me, young man, but I believe my official title is Kaiser Gel von Glorio, Supreme Ruler of the Glorio Empire.
Sorry, Gel, but rank doesnat transfer across different nations.
I'm at the bottom of the totem pole on this one now.
We may be both part of the GLORIO network, but
I've defected to
defected
to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, and now I'm just a private.
Yeah, you know.
I'm
exactly. Sorry, Joe. You're gonna have to start all over again, but you won't be starting alone. Yeah, because with you reporting for duty is Marlin.
High Bishop of the Earth Cult, Marlin. Please, thank you.
While the Earth Cult is technically recognized in these territories, we recognize it as its spiritual authority. However, we do not recognize the Earth Cult's political authority, at least not yet.
Stupid first.
We'll see how things maybe change with season 2, but. Anyways, as you could tell, we're running a 4-man podcast today to celebrate the completion of Legend of the Galactic Heroes' first season. We never thought we'd make it this far, but you know, somehow we're all here, a full 25% through the 1988 OVA.
Ish,
man.
I guess, yeah.
About
only 20%, huh?
Something like that.
25%. Yeah.
Look, the space is big, okay? We're making our way. But the reason why I wanted to bring you two in is because, you guys have also been watching Legend of the Galactic Heroes kind of along with us. Or maybe because of, you know, hot new relevant Legend of the Galactic Heroes recap podcast, Legend of the GLORIO Heroes. And I figured we would get your guys' take on things since our fans have not had a chance to. So we're just going to kick this off with everybody's kind of overall thoughts on what we've seen so far. What are your general feelings on Legend of the Galactic Heroes so far?
I'm just amazed that it's been able to keep the quality up. Like, even the episodes that don't really seem very consequential to the overall plot, they still have really great characters and really great developments. It's been really impressive.
Yeah, I think we're all a little surprised that. I think we're all surprised that not only is it good, but it has, stayed so consistently good.
Yeah, and I think not that just it's good, but it feels like maybe to varying degrees, but every episode has some kind of meaning and impact. And it doesn't feel like there's a lot of filler in, even though
right.
You'd think in a show this long, just by sheer quantity of episodes, some of them would have to be filler, and some of them maybe, like I said, are less consequential as others, like some of those Empire stories and whatnot were maybe a little
right, like the one where the one guy goes back to his home planet to tell the guy that he's like taking all the food and leaving. Like, even then, it told a great like personal story that made you understand what sets up the conflict between the Free Planets Alliance and the people in the Empire.
Right. It still didn't feel like filler, even if it wasn't like directly related to the main conflict or whatever. So, really impressed just overall with how good it's been.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the things Iro and I have, for better or worse, we are maybe something of a broken record on the podcast because, look, when every episode of the podcast is just, man, those were some good episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little remarkable, but also, yeah, like 110 episodes, and so far of the 26 we've seen, remarkably lean isn't the right word, but
economic.
Yeah. Like almost every episode serves a purpose to the grander narrative.
I just feel like it's also amazing that this show has never reached a wider audience. That, we just got this remake recently, but that, this was never played on Adult Swim or Toonami or anything like that. Like, maybe not Toonami, but Adult Swim.
I don't think it would play on either of those networks.
Yeah. Like, I think, Iro and I have
stuff
talked
like
about
Paranoia Agents, they had stuff that dealt with...
Yeah, but Paranoia Agent was also like, what, 20 episodes? So...
I think it was only 12.
Or 12? So, the way Iro and I have put it is, in a ways, I feel like this was the right time for us to watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Like, I don't think I would have appreciated this show watching it on Toonami when I was 14.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Even like 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not sure I would have had the patience for the show in the way I do now.
Yeah.
But yeah, sounds like glad to hear you guys are enjoying it, despite the show's seemingly, daunting reputation.
And it's kind of a shame, I think, that from what you showed of the DNT, that like it's not keeping as much in the style, it seems, of the original show, because I feel like that's what people are eating up right now, with Game of Thrones and like House of Cards. People loved this political drama stuff that people would love if they made an anime that just kept really going deep on that stuff.
I do want to say I tried to watch DNT after starting the OVA, and I did not think it was good, and I feel like if I had watched DNT first, I might have been turned off by the series. So I'm kind of glad that I ended up jumping into the OVA. We'll probably talk more about that later, but
I think
and I did force myself to watch the 6 episodes. So like I got a good chunk of it, and it just did not feel like it felt like almost like an imitation of the show. Like they were trying to take the OVAs and make them kind of a more conventional, like make the characters kind of learn like conventional anime stereotypes and stuff like that. And I did not really enjoy it. So I'm kind of glad that I did not watch that first, because I don't know if I would have.
I mean,
Yeah.
the phrase being bandied around was like, if the original's the historical documentary, then D&T is the like big budget Hollywood blockbuster version.
yeah, I mean, I'm not even trying to necessarily go that far, but I think D&T is definitely kind of streamlined, maybe too much for its own good. Or I mean, it is what it is. It is the modern, pretty remake where everybody is hotter and prettier, except for Reinhard and Kircheis, who somehow got less pretty in D&T. But that's another topic altogether.
Yeah.
But
I was amused they made Calzone the glasses boy, the pretty glasses.
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I guess they realized that they didn't have that niche filled in the original, so
Right.
just fill that out.
Maybe their logic in the
They can-
original is like, it's the
they can
future.
s-
Why does anyone need glasses?
Right.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good point. Well, yeah, because Oberstein just has cyber eyes, so
Like, who the why the fuck do you need glasses when you got a dude
You
over
have
here?
cool, calm, cybernetic eyes.
Yeah, these cool, cold, cybernetic eyes, so to speak. I will say, in defense of D&T, that you're right, that maybe it doesn't hold a candle to the original OVA, but I will say that it did a good enough job to at least convince Iro and I
Right.
that, hey, we should probably watch the original. So
Mhm.
I think it did what it was trying to do in that regard.
Mhm.
I do like how it was able to kind of capture that feeling that I wonder if of Code Geass, if they kind of stole from this, how it was able to make the whole looking at maps and seeing the battle play out on the maps feel really tense, because they would cut every once in a while to the actual fighting, but for the most part you were just seeing the two blobs kind of like crash into each other or destroy each other.
Mhm.
Like, it was really well done, and obviously the score helps it amazingly. Like, I just love orchestra to begin with, so to have such great musical pieces just bring out the drama.
I mean, I think there's something to be said about, I wasn't necessarily going to get into this right now, but because the original OVA's reputation is, it is this old, really long, really kind of sterile
Weighty.
show about, all these guys just standing on ship bridges talking about politics. And, before watching it, I understood. Like, I was like, oh, okay, that's not going to be for everybody. But I think what Legend of the Galactic Heroes does so well, right, is it actually does an amazing job of grounding you in a few really relatable characters that kind of help anchor you to each side's conflict.
Right.
That way it's not just that.
It's not just dudes standing on bridges. It's young Wenli standing on
Right.
bridges. It's Reinhard von Lohengram standing on bridges.
And let it be said that the tactics that they've shown so far, every now and then that show knows how to fucking turn it on, like that one episode of the original Macross where it's just like, oh hey, we got budget now, so
There's a
here,
lot
have
more.
some badass space fights. But
Yeah, that's true.
so not
Save all the money from standing around talking for drawing some sick
Exactly
dog
right.
fights.
Definitely a lot more melee fights than I was expecting in a space opera too.
yeah.
wasn't
Sorry,
just-
Joe. You were gonna say something?
That's kind of where I was going. There's a lot more axe murder than I was anticipating.
Yeah, for sure.
Crossbows.
Yeah, crossbows.
I mean, I kind of love that they even sort of justify that, where it's like, oh, it's actually super dangerous to fire a gun inside of a sealed spaceship. So
Right.
of course we're going to resort to melee weaponry, and
Mhm.
we create this convenient particle that, as far as I'm concerned, is essentially the Metal Gear Solid nano machines of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Or it's just like, Zephyr particles. No
Oh, no.
explanations needed.
Zephyr particles, son.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, the fight at the very end when Reinhard, who gets powered up by Zephyr particles, versus angry Yang, who has submitted to the power of the Satsui no Hado, is going to be some pretty epic shit.
We gotta save our predictions for later, G.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Our predictions part comes later. So, now that we've got our thoughts out of the way, do we want to address the elephant in the room, which is our dearly departed friend Siegfried Kircheis?
Rest in peace.
My one big worry about those episodes is like, I hope every big character death isn't so clearly telegraphed by the previous episode in the future. Like, there isn't just this giant montage of, oh, remember all these scenes where he like commits his undying love for you and then he gets killed.
Well, I think with Kircheis, we all knew something had to happen because he was not in a sustainable position. Like, he was either going to have to stand up to Reinhardt. Well, he was going to have to stand up to Reinhardt because what we know of Kircheis, he couldn't be complicit with what Reinhardt was doing. So he was either going to leave or die, basically, were the options. And and I think it's interesting the way he died was almost like the author gave him like the most merciful death that he could have given him, in the sense that he got to die defending Reinhardt.
In a
And he didn't
heroic
have to
way.
die. He didn't have to
Right.
die fighting Reinhardt, which was going to be the next step. And
Right. I mean, I
Right.
think in many ways, Reinhardt. I mean, Kircheis was almost given something of a cold, sweet mercy because he got to die before seeing Reinhardt descend into, you know,
right,
child killing.
what we know of
by the end
Kircheis, he would not
26,
have
you
been.
know? Yeah.
He would not have stood for that. Like,
Yeah.
he would have, and it would have been. Then he would have died, like I said, fighting Reinhardt, and that would have been like the worst way for him to possibly go for him. So it was kind of almost merciful in the way that he did get to go out
Yeah.
still defending his precious Reinhardt, and you know.
Sorry, go ahead, Marlin.
It is just gonna, for me, make it hard to see like what's the appeal of seeing the Empire side. Like, where's like the person for us to invest ourselves in? Because Reinhardt is getting corrupted.
I mean,
You know,
I
and-
think Reinhardt still is the one we're invested in. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying we like Reinhardt. I'm not saying we, root for him. But I think all of it. I mean, in the same way that you watch Game of Thrones and the latest season.
All these are terrible people, but you're still invested in the
Almost all the
Yeah.
primary characters are terrible people, and I think it's kind of a similar thing with Reinhardt. We're not rooting for him, but we are very invested in his character now.
right. It just seems like there's no good scenario now. It's like
Reinhardt is very much going to live, either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain, and I think the latter is, well,
Yeah, he's
now
gonna
we're getting into
destroy
speculation territory again. So
poor Kircheis.
I do agree. It's going to make the Empire kind of hard. I mean, even surprise, surprise, even harder to root for the Empire now that they don't have the
moderating
moral
element.
engine. Yeah.
And I wonder if that girl is gonna come in more and more.
Hilda,
Yeah, Hilda.
the girl in the opening, who didn't know who she was for 20 episodes.
Right. That
Right.
was always the weirdest thing. I was like, is that Francesca? Are they like spoiling something?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she'll play more of a factor in the future.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, okay, gonna save that for the speculation
Yeah,
part.
sorry. I'm getting
I
ahead of
keep-
myself. I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, it's me too. I keep getting that urge to be, but I bet this.
What if this?
Right, but let's just say that all for one big block at the end. So, okay, so we talked about Kircheis. Rip Kircheis, you were too good for us, too good for this world. As Iro's, again, I'll admit, Iro kind of called it. I think we all agreed Kircheis was gonna die eventually. We just,
I didn't think it was going to be soon.
yeah, I don't
Right.
think any of us were prepared for that.
I had him at the top of my list to die. I felt like somebody was going to die by episode 26, and I had him pretty high up on the list.
I mean,
But
yeah,
it does seem. I mean, looking back now, it makes sense that it had to happen. But I feel like even as late as 24, it was like, I don't know if they're going to go do that yet. If they're going to pull that trigger yet. So
I guess part of me felt after they killed Jessica, I was like, okay, that's your big death of season 1. That is, not a main character, so to speak, but important enough that it is a major thing. But nah, Legend of the Galactic Heroes don't fuck around apparently. So
Yeah.
they had at the end of 26 the little montage of all the body count,
Yeah.
basically, and there was a lot of people that
You
died.
get that every season, like at the end of season 2.
That'll be a lot. One
Oh
touch.
man,
Not to count the like millions.
I don't know if we've hit
Is it
billions
billions
yet,
at this
but-
point of people that have died fighting?
over their entire history, probably billions. I think in this war, like since the show started, I think they're still only in the millions.
Great.
Yeah.
Don't worry. The FPA is working their hardest to boost that number as high as possible.
Right.
So, related to Kircheis, let's just get into what the fuck is Oberstein's deal, because I think
This one
we
shady
had
motherfucker.
discussion, and I think maybe we were split down the lines on what the fuck is Oberstein up to.
I'm still standing by my anti-conspiracy theory that it was totally his plan to, once it happened, pin this on the Prime Minister, but I don't think he was behind the death of Kircheis.
I think Iro and I are on the side that Oberstein is generally portrayed to be just too competent to allow somebody to smuggle in a fucking bazooka in his hollow chest cavity.
Yeah.
He capitalized on an
But he's not,
opportunity.
like,
I'm not
omnipotent.
saying he's behind it. Like, I'm not saying he engineered Ansbach's assassination attempt, but I'm saying he perhaps saw it coming and maybe
More of,
tweaked events a little bit to go into his favor. Got plausible deniability.
Yeah, I don't know if he like told Ansbach, okay, you're gonna put the bazooka in the body and bring it in this time. But I've been back and forth on this, because it does seem a little crazy to me that Oberstein would be betting on Kircheis' ability to deflect a missile.
Right,
and
that's the big thing for me.
So, but we've also seen
And what if he, instead of using the bazooka, like, would it use the ring and just shot the ring?
Marlin, we talk about this in the first half of the podcast. But I'm just saying, what if Oberstein's got like a simulation or like a diagram in his room, and in Kircheis' profile, it's got like all of his stats, and he's done the math. He knows Kircheis, like based on Kircheis' reaction speed and deflection stat, and like on his parry, he knows that Kircheis can block that missile like 80% reliably.
His eyes just like double as an Oculus Rift, and he's able to simulate.
So, I mean, we know. We already know they track HP and MP, right? So why not other stats? But yeah. So I was just gonna say I've been going back and forth on like deciding how complicit Oberstein was with Kircheis dying. I mean, I think it's clear he wanted him out of the picture. I don't think there's any question there. I do feel like maybe if he wanted to kill him, like it felt like he was working toward isolating Reinhardt away from him. And I feel like if he wanted to kill him, he probably would have killed him already. But that said, on the flip side, we have also seen Oberstein take risks. Like there's no, like even somebody, as smart and calculating as him, there's going to be no like 100% guarantees with any of these. I mean, you can even go back to when he approached Reinhardt in the first place. He was taking a gamble on Reinhardt just, executing him on the spot. So, maybe this is another calculated risk.
He's cool.
He was willing
to
calm
and calculating.
Odds on.
I
don't know. But
guys are probably doing all the math for him.
I just don't buy it. Like, for me, it just seems like way too many variables were there. And for me, he was responsible for the situation happening the way it did, for Kircheis not being at his side, which actually probably saved his life.
Not having his sidearm.
But none of the other admirals had their sidearms either.
Right, but Kircheis usually gets sidearm privileges. Remember, at the start of that, prior to the assassination, when Kircheis is checking into the throne room,
like it's never been a problem before that I've had my sidearm.
Right, and then the security details like, sorry, Reinhardt said no exceptions this time. So what does that tell you? Is that Kircheis would normally have his gun on him, but this time he didn't.
We're basically giving Reinhardt no motivation or intention on his own. Like, what if Reinhardt was starting to buy in on the idea that he had to make Kircheis equal to the other admirals?
Oh, no, we're not saying that Reinhardt had anything to do with this. I'm saying this was all Oberstein.
I'm saying, like, the part about the gun
he's been in
could have been just as much Reinhardt saying, well, yeah, if Kircheis has to be equal to everyone, I've been giving him this, this
that
preferential
was
treatment.
engineered. That was still engineered by Oberstein.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
like Oberstein's the one who convinced Reinhard to make that decision in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the real question is, does it even matter? Because whether or not Oberstein
That's the
played
beauty.
a
That's the
role in it.
beauty of the plan. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, well, whether or not he had any actual however deep his hands were into it, he wanted Kircheis out of the picture, and he got Kircheis out of the picture.
And he wanted something that he could pin on the Prime Minister and get him out of the picture.
So it all
Look,
worked
I
out
mean-
for him in the end.
I'm just saying, what we've seen of Oberstein so far, we know like 3 things about him. He's smart. He's shady as fuck. He has cool, calm, cybernetic eyes.
Look,
At least all 3 of those actually, all 3 of those prove that. All 3 of those actually prove he's up to something.
I do like.
I still don't buy
I did
it.
like how even he got poetic at the end when he was just alone there with Kircheis' body and had the whole line about like, with the light there comes darkness or whatever, shadow, and the shadows grow
Like
or whatever,
shadow.
and like that seems like that felt like slightly out of character for him, but I thought it was kind of neat. But anyway.
I mean, this is still a space opera at its core.
Right.
Exactly. Everybody is going to get a little melodramatic every now and then. So
Yes, and I love it. But yeah.
Do you now? You say you love the show.
Really, that's surprising because we might as well roll into our next topic, which is I'm sorry, Gel and Marlin. Actually, I told you guys you were here as new recruits, but Gel, you might be wondering why a decorated officer such as yourself is here with the likes of a war criminal like Marlin. And well, the reality the reality is that actually both of you are here to face judgment.
Are we getting court-martialed or something, or
I don't know.
We are here to hold
For that.
we are here to hold the roast and inquisition of Marlin and Gel, who were, to give some context, early doubters of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
This was back when you guys were still watching D-Net Toys or whatever it's called. I'm just gonna say that.
Like, to give it some context, when we first decided to do this podcast, we got a fair bit of ribbing from everybody in the chat because, hey, you guys are going to have a lot of fun podcasting about 110 episodes of people just standing around talking. And, Iro and I knew we were the first. We were the first faithful of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Damn
us in
straight.
2018.
Yeah, that's true.
We're the first true fans of Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yep, in all of history.
In all
Took
of
30
history.
years.
There are no other Legend of the Galactic Heroes podcasts or
Certainly not.
topics,
And
fan videos.
And we stuck with it, and we kept watching, and we kept doing the podcasts until eventually Marlin and Jill broke down after listening to our excellent recap podcast
Indeed.
and decided, okay, fine, I guess we'll watch it. And then, surprise, surprise, motherfucker, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is great!
Yeah, and then I proceeded to watch like 5 more episodes than they were at in one sitting. I went from that beginning movie all the way to like episode 9. I'm pretty sure.
all right, so that's all fair because we
Yes, please defend yourself.
that's all fair. We did give you guys a hard time, and it mostly because it was funny. Because if you just describe in words to somebody what Legend of Galactic Heroes is, it does sound very boring. And if the show was indeed just men standing around on bridges looking at charts, I think
None of us would.
I don't think any of us would probably still be watching it at this point. But it turns out that is not really all that it is. Especially like once the show really got going, like there really isn't even much of that at all. There's a lot of other, space opera stuff going on. Like there's, a lot of human drama, people having conversations that aren't on bridges.
Pouring wine down people's throats.
Right.
Occasional
I suppose that was the
occasional
filler
splashes
episode now that I
of
think
axe murder. We had Space Caligula showed up.
Oh yeah, that was
Like,
right. God, that was so long ago.
There's a lot of other stuff going on, and yeah, I mean, it's hard to describe that to someone and in just a few sentences. Like if you're making your 1 or 2 sentence pitch for the show, it's hard to really put it in a way that sounds like interesting, I guess. And
I feel like you would have to like just go into, even though I know it's really like cliche, but it's basically Game of Thrones in space, or like House of Cards in space. There's so much.
I mean, that is definitely the elevator pitch, you know,
Yeah.
even though I think... Actually, when did Game of Thrones... When did the first book come out?
It was in the 90s, I think.
Legend of Galactic Heroes predates Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it does.
Booyah! Hell yeah! Shit, George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
So Game of Thrones is really the Game of Thrones is the Legend of Galactic Heroes of
fantasy.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, if you were to talk to a person that hasn't ever watched anything except for whatever's popular, that's how you would pitch it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But you know what? Despite the roasting, I will say I'm glad you guys are watching it, because I'm going to need you guys on my side when I put forth my very controversial write-in candidate for Anime of the Year 2019. 1988's Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Don't do this.
It's Legend of the Galactic Heroes presents Best Anime.
I'd be okay with that.
Look, I'm just saying. All right. Look, 2019's got some interesting stuff. You know, there's Promare and, Shinichiro Watanabe's new anime. But I'm just saying we'll probably finish Legend of the Galactic Heroes sometime in 2019. So I'm just saying, think about it.
You're gonna put me into a constitutional crisis.
Now, now, just like nobody said,
it's the Kamen Rider Gaim crisis of 2014.
Now, the rules here say that no one in the rules that say a dog can't play football, and underneath that, it also says that Anime of the Year doesn't have to have aired in that year.
I think that's like the only rule we have, but that's...
Yeah, that is literally the only rule we've ever had.
But sure, we can talk about that. We can talk about it that a year from now.
We even disqualified anime for starting in the year and not ending.
Well, look, I got some political machinations in stock. We'll see the tune you guys are all singing in 2019. So save that for later. But let's just roll right into the next topic then, related to you guys finally getting into the OVA. Let's talk about the reputation. Like, does Legend of the Galactic Heroes hold up? Is it actually as good as all of its fans say? Like, none of us personally knows that guy, in the anime fandom who is the Legend of the Galactic Heroes fan. But I think we've all seen or heard or interacted with those kind of people where you know them, and then as soon as they start talking about Legend of the Galactic Heroes, they never shut up, and now we have become those people.
Yeah, we've become those people. That's what's happened.
Let me just say, as in, an old man who was actually alive when Legend of Galactic Heroes came out, the
only one.
That said, I never really had much like interaction with that guy, so to speak. Like, at most, I've maybe had like seen some screen caps floating around or whatever, and you kind of hear that the show is amazing and one of the best shows of all time. But I kind of stayed away from it. Part of the reputation was the men standing on ships talking or whatever, but also just the length of it is very intimidating. Because the core OVA being 100 plus episodes, and then if you want to get into the Gaiden stuff, that's even more.
I distinctly remember years and years and years and years ago, I was browsing the internet or whatever and saw someone talking about Legend of the Galactic Heroes, and it was specifically in the context of there's 1,000 characters and you'll care about all of them.
Yeah.
Here's this chart of 100 faces that all look kind of the same, and I'm just oh god,
like that is a very bad and unfair way of pitching the show. And I mean, I guess for some people that might be appealing, but I think for most people that's just going to be a turnoff. Like, I don't have time to get into all that. And I think
Yeah.
it does the show a disservice because once you actually watch the show, like all those details and that richness is there, but it's not really like you don't need to know everybody's name.
They
Right.
don't just
Yeah,
dump
they don't
it
dump
on
it all
you.
at you once. And you don't need to
Yeah.
know everybody's name
Right.
to understand what's going on, to appreciate the themes, to appreciate the core characters that are, the real important ones. And, anybody can watch it
Right.
and enjoy it, even if you're not digging into all the little details of, the depth of the lore that they have. Or you guys always say it's more like there's actual history, not just lore. But
Yeah, that is.
yeah,
That's a good
and
way of saying it.
yeah, I think because a lot of the times the show is pitched that way, that kind of turned me off to it over the past 20 plus years or whatever.
Yeah, now that you say that, it reminds me a lot of how people that really love the Lord of the Rings will talk about how the Lord of the Rings was made, because like J.R.R. Tolkien created all
Right.
these languages and these cultures and like history and geography specifically to like build up such a rich foundation to build the story on that was the Lord of the Rings. And I see the same thing with Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Like, I think Iro, you were the one that showed us that he actually originally envisioned this as the like prequel story to a story he was writing, but he realized it was so interesting.
So it was just like he wanted to write a space opera, and so he wrote the like prologue section of the first novel, which is literally just like a timeline of relatively modern day up until the present day of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, and like goes into detail about like the rise of the Empire, and then the like how the FBI split off, etc., etc. Written in the way like the tone of a historical novel, and like so there will be paragraphs that are just like asides to, and this historian like and the quote from this historian of the time was this, and then he like that eventually like was picked up by a publisher and he expanded it out to the actual story.
And so you can see just how much care he put into it. I think it really holds up.
The thing you can really say about Legend of the Galactic Heroes is, at least the OVA anyways, is remarkably well researched. Like, it's obviously not based on real events, but the way they talk about them, the way they kind of carry them out, they feel very, how do I put it? Unlike most anime or hell, even most fiction, period, it feels,
Grounded.
yeah, like remarkably grounded. And it's kind of interesting. I think I've talked about this with Iro a bit. Is I think all mediums, all genres have like the work, right? The work everybody says, "Oh, you've got to watch this. This is the one," right? Your The Way of the Dragon or your Lord of the Rings. The works in your specific niche that are
The
the
defining
work,
ones.
the defining one, and usually I feel like when you go back to them, they're often still quite good, but you have to come at them appreciating
Right.
what they were contextual to their time,
Right.
right? Like, let's be honest, as somebody who read the original Lord of the Rings books, those books are kind of a slog,
Well,
honestly.
yeah, he'll take an entire page to tell you about a tree. I mean,
Right.
he
And
loves his window dressing for sure.
yes, yes, and you could kind of appreciate it contextually for like, wow, like thinking about when this first was released and the time it was when nobody had created this, or for me in kung fu movies, you have like Bruce Lee's The Way of the Dragon. It's kind of a similar like, wow, this choreography for its time was never done before. They had never done
Right.
it like in this really snappy, kinetic way, and but also compared to modern day martial arts movies, it's still quite good, but it isn't. It doesn't, have the same degree of polish that just comes with the time of a genre being further refined. But I feel like Legend of the Galactic Heroes actually lives up to the hype. It like everybody says it's this amazing fucking thing, and so far it totally is.
Yeah.
All those like storytelling fundamentals that it follows are like done well, I
Mhm.
think.
And I think it has a good balance of like competent and incompetent characters to really reflect like real life situations that you're always going to have. Yeah, that mix of people in power that are completely incompetent, or people that are able to work their way into power that are incompetent, and they're either worked against or undermined by, or undermine better people. And like, I always thought that was really interesting.
The other thing too is like the stories and themes that it's telling. You don't need the context of the times for it to be important and relevant. You could the things they're saying in this show would have been relevant 100 years ago, and they'll probably be relevant like 100 years from now. Like it's a very
I mean, that's like both like very like it's very cool that Legend of the Galactic Heroes does that. It's also very depressing. But maybe we'll get into that in the next topic.
Or never changes.
Yeah, something like that apparently. What was I gonna say? Yeah, speaking to your competence thing, Marlin, I do like that. I feel like in a lot of fiction, when bad things happen, it's because of incompetent people, right? It's like, oh, the stupid, fat, corrupt general made an idiot mistake and it cost the whole war or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I like about Legend of the Galactic Heroes is that you have competent people across like every rung of the ladder, and they're not stupid. They don't buy into the propaganda. You have guys like Kazaloo or Bucock on the FPA, or guys like Kessler in the Empire who totally fucking see like how fucked up everything is. They know it. They can see it with their own eyes, and it's just that they don't have the power to effectively change it, at least not on their own.
Right.
And the best they can do is just kind of mitigate the consequences as best as they can.
Yeah, and that's a much more realistic take on the real world, and not just the good guy.
And I guess, like you said, every once in a while, an incompetent thing won't happen because someone's like inherently incompetent, but they're just like getting caught in the passion of the moment. Like, I'm forgetting his name. Like, was it Mittenmeyer? Where during the fight against Yang Wenli, he totally let him escape because he was just so set upon destroying him, but he got outflanked, and he's obviously still an admiral or Bittenfield.
Wait, was that Bittenfield? Yeah, no, sorry, that's Bittenfield. Rhymes with Garfield. He has red hair. That's how I remember.
Okay. No, yeah, good point. Yeah.
Also, like, I feel like, okay, apologies to all the big Bittenfield fans out there. Maybe we clown on him a little too hard sometimes, but also he totally was kind of a dumbass who fell right into, like, Yang Trap 101. So
he kind of has the unfortunate position of where all of Reinhardt's if all of Reinhardt's admirals are S rank admirals, and he's only like an A, and then he looks like the incompetent one.
I mean, honestly, we'll see. Some of those admirals have gotten like 0 screen time.
True.
And for all we know, Bittenfield is a case of like, trying to use a buzzsaw to do surgery or something. Maybe he wasn't the right man for the job. He seems like the kind of dude that's like, at least to me, Bittenfield feels like the kind of guy that's like, see those dudes out there? Fuck them up. Just, I don't care what the consequences are. Right. Just get over there and fuck them up. Kind of like
that axe guy. What's his name?
Yeah. Like, I wish I could remember that dude on the FPA side. But, Iro, you remember that episode during the Civil War where...
Oh, when they just said go in there and shoot everything.
yeah, where Yang told, like, that one general, take your contingent, just, like... bum rush right into the middle of the rebel FPA fleet, and then just bust the shit out of them.
Was that Van Hugh?
Yeah, Van Hughes. Yeah, I was like, okay, this dude is quickly becoming my favorite character. Something to be said about just, simple, straightforward tactics.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like there is that wide array of competence levels across the whole thing. Like, I remember every time, like, fucking motherfucker Andrew Fork speaks up and says some dumbass shit, there's always, like, someone in the room who's still like, that's dumb, we need to think about this better. And, it's just that they just get shouted down.
Yeah, like, it's never a case of, like, I think it would be way more infuriating for the viewer if you had a character like Andrew Fork and then they just got away with it, like, and nobody could stop them. It's like,
I don't know, him getting away with it, even though people voice concerns, might be more infuriating.
Well, I like that because it at least gives other characters a sense of agency. Like, one of the worst things in Game of Thrones that happens sometimes is you have a character who's like, oh, they're the snide, conniving, cunning one. And every time they pull off a plot, it works perfectly. Nobody sees it coming. Nobody even tries to stop it. Like, even like the other characters who are portrayed as smart and competent fall for it. which I think is infuriating because it removes the agency of those characters. It prevents their ability to respond realistically based on who they have been written as characters. Whereas the thing I like about the Andrew Fork stuff is not Andrew Fork himself, no sir, but it's the fact that he pulls off this heinous bad shit that got millions of people killed. But it's not like Yang or Bucock or any of the other FPA fell for it. The problem is that it was the people in power who let it happen, but other people around him were like, no, that's stupid. Like, you're stupid.
That's actually one of the things that got me to finally watch the show, was listening to you guys talk about Yang being the guy holding the clipboard.
Right. Nobody listening to him.
And nobody listening to him. And, on a personal level, I felt very relatable to me just in my current work position, because I'm often the man holding the clipboard while I watch my superiors make bad decisions. But it also kind of told me, okay, this show is approaching a lot of these topics with a very the author is kind of depicting real stuff. It's not like I said earlier, it's not like a very cut and dry, these guys are good, these guys are bad, and the good guys stop the bad guys.
There isn't too much narrative convenience happening in Legends of Galactic Heroes.
Right. It's all these things happen in ways that are very logical and believable and could happen tomorrow. That was very appealing to me. And hearing you guys talk about that was one of the things that was all right, I should probably check this thing out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think with that, we kind of just roll right into... I mean, we've kind of already been talking about this already, so this isn't exactly the most natural transition, but... Legend of the Galactic Heroes weirdly relevant in 2018, right? I think we've all kind of taken our own personal takeaways from the events it portrays, and I don't know, how can it still manage to be so on point 30 years later?
So, yeah, I mean,
history
obviously,
repeats.
Yeah.
Is it because time is a flat circle and we're all doomed? Is that the core of it?
Populism will always rise after a certain amount of time in every government. We saw it in the 1800s in America, we saw it in the 1700s in France. It's, and so that's what we see kind of happen.
I mean, shit, we saw in the 1940s in Germany. Let's not get it twisted there.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, just adding on to obviously the history repeating itself is the clear kind of easy answer. Obviously the author is a student of history, and you see a lot of, even older, we're talking about being relevant despite being written 30 years later, but 30 years ago he was writing about things that happened, far earlier than that. You see a lot, and you see even just direct influence. Gee, you mentioned Germany. I mean, the empire is German.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of the turn of the century kind of German aesthetic there, and that's not an accident.
I mean, politically, they're basically space the First Reich, so with elements of the Second Reich. The Second Reich with elements of the Third Reich starting to leak in. So
I feel like specifically, there's a lot of Julius Caesar in Reinhardt. If you, I mean, maybe not making direct point for point comparison, but just kind of the way he's rising to power. There's a lot of that in there. We literally had people in togas at some point.
Right, I was gonna say he can't be Caesar because it was the other guy that got stabbed to death.
Napoleon's rise to power was somewhat similar.
Yeah,
he was dealing with
Napoleon too. There's a lot of Napoleon in there. So I mean, there's history leading up to it, and I think what fascinates me is, and I think we've talked about this before, but the fact that it is set so far in the future in space kind of gives it enough distance where you can kind of apply it to, it's far enough removed from reality where you can apply it to anything. But I think it also, because it's so far in the future, it also kind of asks the question of, are we still going to be doing this, 500, 1,000, 2,000 years from now?
The answer appears to be yes.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were talking about the Empire, and I think I want to spend at least a little bit of time talking about the FPA, because the FPA is kind of a mess, guys, and in many
Yeah.
ways, it reminds us of our own mess, perhaps. Like, I think we can all agree the Empire is worse, right? I mean,
Yes.
fuck Nazis, fuck the Empire, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
We all can broadly agree on that, even if Reinhard is going to make them, the good version of the Nazis or whatever. Like,
By
That's a
killing
sentence right
people
there.
over 10 years old.
yes, the good version of the Nazis who kill people who are above the age of 10. But, quote unquote, good. For the greater good, for the needs of the many.
Christ.
But I think for a lot of us, the FPA frustrates us more because
It's more directly relatable to our current
it's in
situation.
some way
It's a democracy.
it's in some ways kind of an ugly mirror of kind of democracy's inherent fragility. Yang talks about this, right? Like Yang at the very end of season 1 is like,
Right.
actually, I'm really scared because what good is democracy if it means people like Job Trunicht can, rise to power?
Right.
And I think it kind of speaks to that deep-seated anxiety that we all have, that democracy essentially only works so long as everybody agrees to
Right.
it. And once you have somebody that doesn't agree and they gain enough power, it can be very, very difficult to stop them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I keep thinking about the stadium and how,
Yeah.
when they make the protest and how the protesters turn the guns on because obviously the coup force was in the wrong, but we see this really ugly version of revolt and how they do because it's basically the complete.
I mean, they weren't gonna just stand by and
mean,
let themselves get shot up.
Right. We talked about this during that podcast, but I feel like in some ways that is the fallacy, or it's the fallacy that people accuse peaceful protesters of committing, right? Is that, how could you claim that you're peacefully protesting if you're willing to turn violent? And it's more, peaceful protest works under the assumption that the government will at least, if not, acquiesce to the demands, it operates under the pretense that the government will at least respect the rights of the peaceful protest, which the National Salvation Military Council clearly did not respect. And I think in that situation, I think the thing they were trying to communicate there is that it is entirely within the right of even peaceful protesters to defend their lives.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, what that boiled down to was okay, what if you're peaceful protesting and then you start getting beat and shot? What are you supposed to do? Continue to just be beat and shot? Right.
If the government continues to not respect your protest.
Well, if this is Detroit Become Human, they just start singing, everything will be totally fine.
I mean, there are
God.
examples of where the response by at least some kind of government did elicit a greater popular response. You saw that in Birmingham in the 1950s. Or
yeah,
in India.
I don't think that situation would apply though, given the situation of the government. Yeah, I mean that is different because that's assuming that the rest of the nation and the government is going to look at that as wrong, whereas I think in the Legend of Galactic Heroes scenario,
they had already taken control of the entire
they had already
basically.
specifically said free speech is canceled, and
Right,
yeah,
but so I think it's the interesting thing is you could see there was a breakdown because it seemed like Yang was really easily able to take all of the outlying planets after that happened. That there was a breakdown in morale because of that event.
I think Yang was going to take those planets regardless, but
I think there's some idea to that that event is such a I mean, let's be frank, it's such a flashpoint, it's such a PR disaster for the NSMC that you could maybe make some argument that it gave Yang the quote unquote extra push, but also I think again, as you said, Yang is look, as Shenkop told Yang, dude, there's no way you're gonna lose this. You're gonna put this rebellion down. There's no way that isn't happening. But yeah, I think as you guys said, in many ways, because Legend of the Galactic Heroes isn't about a specific era that we are intimately familiar with,
Right.
it makes it easier for us to ascribe our own personal experiences and values to it.
Right.
I'm sure there are people out there who,
etc.
look, I'm sure there are people out there who watch the Empire stuff and go, huh, yeah, this is how a government should be run. This Reinhard guy's got the right idea. And again, those people are wrong, but it is but because of the way the show is framed, you can apply that to your own personal framework.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I think, with that we've kind of established, yes, spoilers. Legend of the Galactic Heroes, still relevant in 2018.
Still relevant.
Oh yeah.
Still be applied to right now.
Yeah. So with all that said, let's roll into some lighter topics. We've this podcast of ours has mostly been, kind of us just shooting the shit about each episode and that sort of thing. But now that we've got everybody here, I figured we might as well hash out the really important stuff. So we're gonna start off with just some fun side questions here. So the first topic we have is Wenli Presents favorite Legend of the Galactic Heroes character, because I am framing it this way because I cannot just have a podcast where all four of us just agree, yeah, Wenli is the best, isn't he?
I mean, I was so say, we would have to count out a couple of characters, right?
So, favorite character that isn't Wenli, go.
For some reason,
it's tough.
Dusty Attenborough. I kind of like.
He has a good name.
Yeah, he's got a great name. That's one of the things. But it's also his talks with Yang as a confidant, and he seems to be a bit more grounded. He tries to bring Yang a bit more to the ground, a little bit
he's a little more pragmatic. Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't say. I'm surprised you didn't say Julian. Then I feel like Julian is Yang's true confidant, at least so far.
Yeah, he's too much of a hotshot.
His ward,
just busting into rooms.
Oh, I don't know. I like that aspect of Julian. When Yang is dealing with Bagdashu, and the camera pans up and fucking Julian is already fucking cocked and ready to go.
Yeah.
Or when Yang got ambushed at the hotel, and Julian's first instinct is to grab the fucking gun from his suitcase.
Yeah.
I was like, man.
Got high hopes for that kid.
Yeah.
I'm terrified because in the in the ending sequence, everyone except Julian fades away.
I really hope that's not what they're implying in that ending.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
We'll save that for the speculation section, but...
So I also, when I saw this in the notes, realized that we can't all just say Yang, because I think if we were approaching this from the traditional favorite character is the one you like the most, would all pick Yang, or maybe one of the other FPA people or something. I don't know, but I wanted to shout out Jessica Edwards.
Yes,
and
definitely.
Specifically, I don't want to get this all serious again, but everybody else in the show is military. Jessica did not have a fleet to command, or a squad of troops or anything like that. She was just a regular civilian, and for her to have the courage to do the things that she did with the means that she had available to her, I think was very we could all probably learn from Jessica, because I think it's safe to say none of us are probably ever going to command a space fleet. I'm just going out on a limb here and saying that, we're probably not ever going to be in a position like Yang to make the kind of decisions that Yang has to make and be in those positions. But we can all be Jessica. That is, there's nothing she was doing that we would not be able to, do in taking a stand for, what we believe in. And,
right.
That's just I think it was a good example. And I feel like the moment that she died was, for me, probably the hardest hitting moment of the series so far.
It's maybe that show's lowest point, because I totally agree with you, Jill. I'm glad you actually brought up Jessica, because I feel like she is the character that as bad as the FPA gets, she kind of is the personification that, or she is the personification of why democracy is worth fighting for. She personifies this idea that political activism is worth it. It is worth fighting for, that it can change things for the better, and that it can inspire people to, kind of rise out of their apathy and try to make the world a better place. And losing her kind of, I don't know, in some ways it's a very dark omen for the FPA, I feel.
Yep. It's hard. It's a hard, even just thematically, it's kind of hard to swallow that, swallow that moment because it's, we see those things happen, and it's kind of difficult to accept sometimes. But even so, even to the point where she put herself in danger, it was she was willing to, ironically that the guy. Whatever the military guy was, gave that whole speech about, are you willing to die for it? And, her I know you guys talked about it, but I'll just, reaffirm her answer to that was also one of the best, I think, moments of the show. So,
no, totally.
Yes, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
sorry, I made it serious again, but
no, it's fine. If I can't pick Young, yeah. I mean, yeah. Young is best boy, obviously, but if you want to talk about just like narrative, character writing, Reinhard stuff is also really good. Like, it should be said that while at the start, I think all of us were just like all Young all the way, and while we are still all Young all the way, like they actually did a good job of like fleshing out Reinhardt and making his character
you did
realistic and believable.
Sorry.
In a way that like maybe I didn't necessarily expect to come from like the, at least from our point of view, the obvious bad guy side.
Totally.
And like it's true that like how do I put this? Even if we don't agree with Reinhardt, like we're all still heartbroken and when Kircheis dies, and stuff like that. Like we still care about what the character's going through. We're still invested, even if we don't agree with most of his decisions. And
I will also, agree with there and kind of give out some brief props to Reinhardt, because I think I was one of the strongest, like, skeptics of Reinhardt's ability to carry the Empire side of the story, because, the thing with Yang is, look, the reason why we had to exclude Yang from this category is because Yang is just so damn relatable. He's affable, he's a little self-deprecating, he's undeniably brilliant, but also, maybe lacks the, the sheer ruthless ambition to, turn it into anything more than, his kind of idealistic crusade to defend democracy. But they really do make Reinhardt a relatable character that you can get emotionally invested in. And they do give him flaws that I feel like that was my biggest like criticism of DNT, is that the DNT version of Reinhard is the facade version of Reinhard in the OVA. Like, we've talked about this multiple times, but there are kind of two sides to Reinhard. There is the facade. There is the impeccable, impenetrable, cold, calculating, charismatic god emperor Reinhard. The one that will, command his men, through any, trial and tribulation and come out on top in the end. But then there is the Reinhard that only people like Annerose and Kircheis saw, the kind of immature, impulsive, like, Reinhard that is, like, extremely quick to, I mean, as we saw in his childhood, extremely quick to violence, the Reinhard who at the first, like, in the first whiff of trouble, immediately grabs, like, the closest brick or pipe he can get his hands on and, like, starts whacking people in the head. And I'm glad we saw that, and we still see that even when he gets older, right? There's the Reinhard that's like, ugh, Bittenfield, hang up. I don't want to get a call from Bittenfield anymore.
And it's the same Reinhard who, upon like being told maybe it was Lichtenlad, says put every child over 10 to death.
Yeah, it's and the same Reinhard that's like, ugh, I don't want to go to Prince Braunschweig's ball. He's rude, and I hate
Yeah,
him.
I think
And
Yes, nannies him into it.
right, like you realize that actually Reinhard is a deeply flawed individual, and that actually helps a ton in making him a lot more relatable.
Reinhardt's development was arguably just my favorite thing overall in season one, because I think I would go as far as to say that like the actual main conflict of season one is Reinhardt's development. Like, what kind of man is he going to be? And they did a good job of making his, I guess, descent into, the kind of ruthless Machiavellian path that he puts himself on by the end of the season. They set it up in a very believable way where you can see, yeah. I think a lot of that
It feels
is
natural.
I think it was interesting because we talk about how the show has like the dual protagonists or whatever with Yang, and Yang on one side, like we like kind of know who Yang is like from day one, and I don't know if Yang in episode one is really that much different than Yang in episode 26. Whereas, Reinhardt, I think that question was still kind of up for debate in episode one, and it kind of gets its unfortunate answer by episode 26, and that's kind of a lot of what the season.
And I think it will continue to evolve, honestly.
Yeah, and maybe part of that was, I think it's telling that I think it's telling that the author chose to make Yang like almost 10 years older than Reinhardt, because
Right. I was going to say that.
Yang is, Yang has answered a lot of questions that you're more comfortable answering when you're like 30 than you are when you're 20, and we kind of.
Right. I mean, in many ways, who knows? Maybe we'll find out when we watch the Guy Dance series, but it feels kind of like Yang already went through his tumultuous younger days, and he's a lot more self-assured now. Like,
right. And so, yeah, and so just seeing Reinhardt kind of, and it's very interesting the way they did it, because like we don't often see like Reinhardt's like direct perspective. A lot of this is just like from Kircheis' perspective or from like everybody else's perspective. We don't like hear a lot of his like inner monologue on these things, but clearly he's had that that angel and devil on his shoulder for the entire season one, and kind of unfortunately the devil wins by the end. But yeah, all of that was just very fascinating.
totally. All right, so my favorite character will kind of help us also roll into our next topic, but my favorite character that isn't Yang Wenli would probably be Shenkop.
Yeah.
He's not the biggest, most major character, but look, you gotta love the suave, dashing, military man who is a little pragmatic, is willing to, punch under the belt a couple times, but he gets results, and he's got a gleaming smile the whole time he's doing it.
Did he shoot first?
Yeah, Shenkop would probably shoot first, but he would do it with a good reason, and then he'd like smooch a lady. I liked Shenkop and the Rosenritter because they just, as we said during the episode, the podcast for this episode, where they take Iserlohn, Shenkop just feels like the smoothest motherfucker in the world. Like, he's not maybe the most like nuanced character, but it's just everything he does has this air of like, in the same way that Yang always feels in control in terms of like, military strategy and tactics, Shenkop feels like he's always in control, when he's got a gun or an axe or a crossbow in his hand.
I think there actually is some nuance to Shenkop in the kind of questions that he ends up asking Yang, and kind of the things that the scenarios that he poses to him that really make Yang think about what he's doing, and kind of all of us thinking about what Yang's doing. He's almost like
Shenkop is the one who goes to Yang and is like, hey, why don't we just wait until the NSMC purges all the politicians, then we swoop in and you take power. I mean, he's the one who brings that up.
Right.
He is a little bit more pragmatic, and
in the very beginning, it's like in the very beginning, he says like 5 of the previous Rosenritter commanders deserted. And it's like, what's going to stop me from doing the same thing? Like, he's got a lot of confidence. It's really interesting.
I mean, I think he's a little bit similar to Yang, actually. I think that's why they hit it off so well, is that, like Yang, he doesn't bother with pretense, right? He lays it all out on the table.
Right.
He's the kind of character who's like, look, these are the terms and conditions, these are the risks. Are you still ready to, to bet on me? And I think that also he is in some ways conducive to maybe some of the best Yang moments, where Shenkop's like, what happens if I betray you? And Yang's just like, then we all die, or specifically, I die. This mission will fail. Like, this entire plan hinges on you, so please, don't betray me.
Right.
That was a pretty great. That was a pretty great scene.
And I think with that, we'll just roll right into favorite moment / episode, and we'll just continue this train. So for me, my favorite episode probably is the taking of Iserlohn.
It's a pretty good one.
It's a fun, pulpy episode that's still got a bit, it's got that drama, it's got the action. I feel in many ways the taking of Iserlohn is the first episode that communicated, at least to Iro and I, that, Legend of the Galactic Heroes can wear a lot of hats, and it can wear almost all of them equally good. Because that episode, like, it still has some good fun, like, tactical bluffing by Yang. It shows that anime's surprisingly good sense of humor. There's that.
I love when the soldier falls with the rope attached to him.
Oh, yeah.
Just waves at some ladies.
Or like when they first get there and like, oh, we're injured, we need help. And the commander of Iserlohn's like, well, what's the problem? He's like, look, they're carrying out their dastardly plan. It's just Yang's fleet moving back and forth in space.
Oh yeah.
Right, and then that one Rosenritter is like, oh no, they're starting.
They know how to sell stuff, those Rosenritter.
The Rosenritter
so good.
Are fantastic tacticians, masters of hand-to-hand combat, and amazing actors. Like, what can't they do? God damn. Fucking send the Rosenritter to assassinate Reinhard. They could pull it off. If anybody could pull it off.
I think. Go ahead.
I'd probably pick that episode too. And also, isn't that also when we saw Dark Yang appear?
Yeah, Angry Yang. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, Angry Yang. Yes.
Yang.
Yeah, we get a good bit of Yang's humanity where he's like, hey, I'm going to fire a couple warning shots because, hey, I now control Iserlohn, this huge cannon that destroys everything in its path, and I don't want to turn this into a bloodbath, so, please turn around.
Please leave, yeah.
When the Empire doesn't, he gets angry because this stupid, incompetent admiral is just going to throw away these lives because of his dumb pride, and it's kind of interesting to see that, like, of all the, like, because Yang is such a nice dude, and he takes so many insults, like, with a smile. Like, he gets so much shit from everybody. But that's the thing that makes him angry. Like, that pisses him off more than anything is just, these completely worthless battles that, that don't amount to anything but just more death.
I actually really liked episode 16. Was it 15, 16? Where just, like, we're hit with three major paradigm shifts in the same episode.
Episode.
It's like, okay, we've just finished Armlitzer, and like we're all exhausted, but also here we like immediately get news that the Kaiser has died, which throws everything into chaos on the Emperor side. And then we get the news that like Job Trunick has been elected to like council chairman, and we go, oh no, like is this going to be chaos on the FPA side? And then Adrian Rubinsky goes into his secret chamber and speaks to the Grand Bishop of the Earth Cult, and it's just you're just like, what is happening?
Yeah. I think the episode is good because that is the episode that shows us Legend of the Galactic Heroes
just getting started.
Right, is not afraid to change up the status quo. Like, this is not just going to be an endless battle between the FPA and the Empire. This will be a long, protracted conflict with sides constantly changing and new paradigms being created every day. And yeah, that's a great episode.
Right? That. Yeah, it's just like me not. like I was kind of still expecting the entire show to just be like FBA kind of going back and forth, and maybe it still will be that to some degree, but like that episode, all of these like major plot twists that I would expect to be happening, 2/3 into a show are happening in episode 16 of 110, just completely floored me.
Yeah, like it makes you wonder, shit, if this is happening in episode 16, like what crazy reveal will they show by like episode 70? It's unthinkable. Marlin, what's your favorite episode? Quickly.
Me, I would probably pick. Man, I think it would be the Battle of Armlitzer. Just how there was just so many different tactical shifts and changes, and sometimes it would take a little bit of time to figure out how exactly it was all working together. But just how epic the scale was. They talk about how many millions of people died at the end of it, and all of the fallout from it. Yeah, so
it's a huge event. Yeah.
I don't think any of us the show was relatively slow paced, which is not bad, but just how it was until that battle, and then suddenly ships flying around, explosions everywhere, everything happening at once.
Oh.
I mean, it's a great episode because I think even thematically, the way that episode is paced shows just how messy war can be. Not just in the sense of it's gruesome, but also how. What they say is right. The best laid plans,
right,
get destroyed in first contact with the enemy, because the moment things actually play into action, everything flies out the window, and you're kind of left just trying to scramble to adapt to whatever your opponent is doing. You kind of see that with Yang. He's Yang is he's switching between so many roles during that battle. Initially from trying to hold out against fucking whoever's fleet at the time, and then trying to fly over to help out other fleets, and then having to consolidate everybody's fleets at Amlitzer, and then getting surrounded there and having to beat a retreat. That it's it shows just how frantic battles can be, and how in some ways the best admirals are the ones who adapt quickly.
Boy, how many Amlitzer size conflicts we're gonna get by the end of this show?
Another thing I really liked is I can't remember the exact wording, but someone was just talking about how great of Admiral Young was, and then another person commented is he's great, but it's only ever in defeat that he gets his greatness.
It's kind of Iserlohn's only big offensive win when you really think about it.
I mean, Young's not the type to go on the offensive in the first place.
Yeah. I guess there's eventually the taking of the FPA, but even he said that this is a completely pointless war. I hate that I have to kill these people, but we have to protect our democracy. And so Iserlohn's
I barely
he's
even count
this entire time
winning the rebellion as a win for Yang, because it's still a lose for the FPA as a whole. So, but okay, so now that we've kind of talked about our favorite characters and our favorite moments, let's move into the really important stuff, and that is, who is the hottest? Who would make the best husbando? And in parentheses, why is it Yang Wenli?
I actually am pretty sure it wouldn't be Yang Wenli, because he doesn't take care of himself.
Yang needs someone who's willing to take care of him.
You're pretty much dooming yourself to a life of doing dishes and making tea.
It's true. Anybody who's going to be with Yang is going to have to also be both his lover and his caretaker, I guess. Which,
well, okay. Let's just establish the ground rules here. We're not just talking straight up physical appearance. We're looking at the full package here, right? Yes. So yeah.
Otherwise, 5 guys would have to be ranked at the same place, because there's just no way.
But yes, I mean, this is kind of a joke question, but also I think this kind of ties into the idea that Legend of the Galactic Heroes has been popular with the Fujoshi fan base for years now. People joke. There was the joke when DNT was first revealed that oh great, now Legend of the Galactic Heroes is trying to appeal to the women. It's like, no, like
It was always like this.
Right.
it's always been popular for these
It's
reasons, and it's
always,
totally understandable because my second favorite episode, honestly, not to go back to the prior topic, is when Reinhard goes to the ball, and it's because at the very end when the bomb goes off. And fucking Kircheis is running in there, and he's running through all the rubble, all frantic, and Reinhard, Reinhard, where are you? And he's curled in a ball, sitting on a piece of rubble, and he's like, "Oh, Kircheis, I knew if I stayed still, I knew you would find me, Kircheis." I was like, "Oh man, like, oh, these guys, their relationship is so good. Like, no wonder why people ship them. Like."
Yeah, I guess it has to be Kircheis then, if we're going by that saying.
I mean, Kircheis is the real answer to this question, right?
Right, Kircheis has all of the like competence and kindness of Yang Wenli, but also the competence and ability to take care of himself. And yes, even by the standards of the FPA, apparently Kircheis is super hot.
And he's super hot. So, I mean... So is the real question who is the hottest that isn't Yang Wenli or Kircheis?
Maybe that is the question. Once again, it is the Yang Wenli and Siegfried Kircheis co-present who is the hottest Legend of the Galactic Heroes character.
I mean, I guess just by objective measures, it seems like Shenkopf gets
love. I feel like it's Shenkopf, right? He's like he is the dashing rogue in that conventional way.
Right, yeah. I think it's voiced by Norio Wakamoto.
Yeah,
heterochromia.
Brooding, but
I think Ruenthal's the dark horse there too. They had a comment in there that all the ladies.
And I mean, here's the thing, right? Like
Ruenthal.
the reason why you would go for Royanthal is because he kind of has that brooding mystique of Oberstein, but he's also not a creep. like here's the thing, right? If you dated Oberstein, like you just know, like here's the let's say you had like a really good, like actually healthy relationship with Oberstein, he would still do really shady shit, right? Like Oberstein is the kind of guy, like even if his intentions were good, like they are with Reinhard, you'd be like, Oberstein, why are you looking through my phone? And he's like, oh well, I was worried. I wanted to see who you were talking to recently. It's like, why the fuck do you care, Oberstein? And the kind of guy who would be like, I'm doing it for you. I'm just trying to like. Ugh, he would be that kind of guy. Like, no, thank you. Like, Royanthal is dark and brooding, but but Royanthal also hangs out with Mittermeier, so like he's kind of cool too.
Gale Wolf,
like, because Mittermeier is like, because let's not discount Mittermeier as well. Like before Mittermeier said his weirdly fascist statement of, authority lies with those who have power. Before he took that turn, Mittermeier is he's kind of like he's the Gale Wolf. He's like the fun, more lighthearted one. He's like the he's like the star football. He's like the star quarterback of Reinhardt's bench, right? So like, if Royanthal hangs out with Mittermeier, that they're both probably pretty cool. They're also both very smart. They easily captured Ovliser with that master plan.
The Team Rocket special.
I don't get how they did that hole in the ground. They never really explained that. Space shovels? Like, they were cutting through steel.
The shovels, probably. They probably had... I'm sure they had those.
Those space axes apparently can cut through anything, so... I mean...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they cut through people like butter, so...
I will say, I would knock all of Reinhardt's admirals down a notch after how quickly they jumped on Oberstein's plan when Reinhardt was out of the picture. But
they're all kind of goobers in how quickly they fell for Oberstein's plan, so that is definitely a mark against them.
Yeah. Kircheis still wins.
I mean, well, here's the thing, all right? I will make my argument for Yang against Kircheis. Kircheis is great, right? Kircheis is that dude who he'd make you breakfast, he'd prepare you lunch, he'd kiss you on the way out. Like, Kircheis is like the perfect man, but I think that's the problem. He's too perfect. You would constantly feel like you could never live up to Kircheis' standards. And Kircheis would never judge you, right? If Kircheis loved you, he would never hold it against you. Like every night in bed, you'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm not good enough for you, Kircheis. And Kircheis would be like, no, it's fine. Like, I love you just the way you are. But you aren't good enough. You'll never be good enough for Kircheis.
You're right, G. You've sold me on that emotional burden. That's a lot to
like you would constantly, like whenever you're going out with your friends, whenever Kircheis takes you to meet his friends in the throne room, whenever Kircheis introduces you to his work friends, you'd be like, oh my god, he knows all these like famous, powerful people. Oh my god, is that Mittermeier, the Gale Wolf, and Royenthal in the same room? And is that Bittenfield? Like you'd always feel like you just weren't good enough. You weren't good enough for Kircheis or his friends. You feel like Kircheis' friends would silently judge you. You know, like when Kircheis is like, hey babe, can you stay here? I gotta talk with Reinhard for a bit. Like all the other generals would be like asking you questions. They'd be like, "Oh, so you're Kircheis, babe. Like, what do you do for a living?" And like you're like, "Oh God, I work part time." You know, and then always kind of have that feeling in the back of your head, like, "What about Reinhard? Like, who does he? He spends a lot of time with Reinhard."
Oh, Kircheis would never do that.
Like, sure, you say that. No, see. That's the thing. You're right. You know Kircheis is too perfect. He would never do that. And then you would hate yourself for doubting him.
All right. I think you convinced
All
me.
right.
Well, it's that, or like I said, you're doing dishes, you're making tea, you're probably picking up towels off the bathroom floor.
I'm just saying, Yang is low maintenance, all right? Like, you can wake up on a Sunday morning and be like, Yang, did you make breakfast? You'd be like, no, I thought you were. Did you at least make the tea? I don't know how to make the tea. Can you put brandy in the
But then you don't have breakfast.
That's right, Yang is a single dad.
There you go. Julian.
Right. Yang Wenli's a hot single dad, and his son is super responsible, and like so you know that like Julian will take care of the both of you because Julian's just that good of a kid, and like he's a crack shot with a gun, and like you know. Julian's not a square either. Like Julian knows that, like, hey, Yang likes a little brandy in his tea,
but
and
only if you ask.
know he'll put a little brandy in your
So are we
tea as
saying
well.
that Yang Wenli is the mom from Toradora?
He's not that helpless.
I mean, I'm seeing the parallels now that you keep mentioning.
Well, G, you've made very compelling arguments when we look at the full picture. So I don't know if I can really counter that.
You gotta put yourself in. You gotta put yourself in that situation and really think about, like, yes, Kircheis is amazing. Kircheis is hot, and even in a case where Kircheis loved you, could you love him enough? Could you be good enough for Kircheis? Like,
could you possibly be good enough for?
And Kircheis? You know what? I bet that's the same argument that Fujoshi makes for why Reinhard and Kircheis are meant for each other. Like, the only person that's good enough for Kircheis is probably Reinhard. So.
Okay. I don't know, but Yang's pretty woke.
Yes, now that we've established that, let's move into our next category, which is stack rank Yang's top woke-ass lines. I've tasked Iro here with compiling some of the best lines from Yang Wenli during the first season.
Uh-huh.
And we just pick our favorites, I guess.
I'm just posting a bunch into the chat here. For those of you not benefiting from the video feed.
Right, yes. Since this is an audio podcast, I'm sure this is very good, compelling content, but essentially we are just looking at
For me, I think it probably would be that...
This is why we have to go...
the freedom not to get involved is perhaps the most valued freedom we have in this country.
It's a pretty good line, yes. It's Yang getting to the very core of democracy.
Oh boy, you made a list.
Let's see here.
These are taking a while for me to load.
Yeah, you went all out, so maybe we'll just take turns reading them out. So the first one I'm looking at here is actually from DNT. It is a line, "It is the people who create the dictator who have the greater responsibility. Even if they don't actively support him, standing by silently makes them equally guilty." Pretty good line. Pretty good line from Yang Wenli.
I like that. Just thinking about winning and the human race's unlimited capacity for depravity. You know,
it's very
as you do.
Correlated. Think about it.
Yeah. Let's see. We have here Rudolph, who founded the Galactic Empire, and that bunch in the National Salvation Military Council were both convinced that only they could save the day, and they continue to think so. But what made Rudolf create an atrocious, despotic government was his sense of duty to the whole human race.
That next one's really good too. There's never been permanent peace in human history, but there's been plenty of ages with decades of peace.
Yeah, that was one of the...
In short, my hope is haughtily enough for a few decades of peace in the future.
I actually really do like that one because it's kind of... That's the one during his talk with Shenkup, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of speaks to, like, Yang's an idealist, but he's not even that idealistic. Like, he doesn't think that he's going to save democracy or, you know, usher in a new age of peace. He's just hoping that, like, he can, like, turn this into, like, a Cold War situation where they just, you know, kind of sign an armistice treaty and have a couple decades of, you know, not sending millions of people to their deaths.
Not killing each other.
Iro, you want to read the next one?
Sure, got this is when he has taken down the coup d'etat forces, and they're basically talking about how we were doing the right thing, we believed we were fighting corruption, and Yang tells them that political corruption isn't just politicians taking bribes, that's the corruption of individual politicians, but true political corruption means that people aren't free to criticize politicians for taking bribes.
Man, Yang is just a good take factory in general. Goddamn, is there an opposite of the Austin Walker tweet of "You ever see a take so bad you are forced to go to sleep"? Is there like you see a Yang take so good you are forced to immediately, I don't know,
set up in your seat.
Political action or something? So then we have this one-line one where Yang is just watching Job Trunick, you know, gabber on the TV, and he says, and so in any age there are instigators. Which is sweet and to the point.
Everybody, let's fight so we don't die, because we can only drink good tea while we're living.
Yes, that's also a fantastic one. Is that the last of them, or do we have...
more here.
Oh, man, you got a lot. Props to you, Iro, for...
The few nobles ruling the masses is bad government, but the alliance with the government chosen by the people is badly governed. Which one do you think is wrong? Really putting that is a really good one.
I mean,
it's not the kind of question we can easily answer.
Yeah. I feel like, you know, not to get too deep into the politics again, but I feel like, you know, it's very easy to just say, oh, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is great because it shows both sides. And I think a lot of fiction falls into that pitfall of being like, see, both sides are evil, or both sides have good aspects to them. And like kind of in that very like flat, very black and white, not black and white, very like unnuanced way. Whereas I feel like the reason why Legend of the Galactic Heroes can even get away with making that statement of like democracy and autocracy both have like their pros and cons is because the show actually takes the time to examine both of them.
You can say there's good and bad on both sides, but it's almost irresponsible to say that without then explaining why you would say that, and that's the show makes sure that you understand that. And that's why the both sides argument is always a bit dangerous, because a lot of times people don't take the time to explain and kind of create, you know, false equivalency or whatever. And, you know,
and people don't take the time to accept explanations either.
Sure, yes. So let's, how many do we have left? Like 2 or 3?
All right, let's see here. I've learned there are two currents of thought in human society. The opinion that there are things worth more than human life, and the opinion that there is nothing preferable to life. When people begin to fight, it's on the pretext of the former type of people, and it justifies the latter when they stop fighting. For how many thousands of years has that been continuing?
I love that he's just rattling it off while he's like taking a nap.
Oh boy. I fucking swear to God, I need an episode of Legend of the Galactic Heroes where we just see Yang reciting these in the mirror, because I love Yang Wenli, alright? I truly do, but nobody can be this smart, right? Like, nobody can just be this good at this, right? Just rattling off like, oh, let me give you like a quick 30-second, you know, debriefing on like the failings of democracy. Like it's no big thing.
Know.
Can you get me my
I've been in some pretty deep conversations. It depends on like how much that person studied that particular topic.
Right. I mean, I guess that's the thing.
I can see with how much that he's devoted to history studying, to like have these kind of lines just be something that he's thought about for a long time, ready to bring up if someone ever thinks about it.
I do have one last one here that I liked. From one Yang Tai Long. the father of young Wenli, starring young Wenli asking why so many people were fooled by Kaiser Rudolph if he was such a bad guy. And young Tai Long tells his son that it's because the people wanted their lives to be easy.
Man, I feel like, again, I totally understand why, Jill, you fell off DNT, but at least I feel like for Iro and I, when we watched that episode, that's when I was like, oh shit. The show is operating on levels that anime does not typically engage with.
Right.
But yes, that one also very good. So I don't know. I was gonna say let's stack rank them, but also, man, that's
That's a lot.
I don't know if that's.
So, I don't know.
I don't know if that's possible.
Everybody just, I don't know, say your favorite of those, I guess. Really,
it might be that last one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Really, I just wanted this opportunity to just talk about some of Yang's many good ass lines in this show. So,
thanks, Young Wenli.
Yeah.
Thank you for
sharing. Continues to be the good take factory we so desperately need in our times. But all right, one more thing we're gonna do is
this is my favorite.
We always talk about how the thing with Legend of the Galactic Heroes is, there are just so many dang characters, we can barely keep up. So we figured, okay, let's see with the end of season 1, how many characters from the Legend of the Galactic Heroes OP can you name?
Probably 4.
Okay, so we have a chart that I'm assuming we'll probably link. That would be the in the show notes, probably, so everyone, because again, this is gonna be real.
So I will link this.
So just to start out, I do know who Annerose is, so at least I get one.
Yeah, the first 3 are free squares, I think. So
Sure. Did I already give you guys the link? I'm sorry if I.
Yeah. We have the.
Since you guys are talking about it, I guess.
So first 3, we have Annerose, Reinhardt, and Kircheis. So that's kind of the free.
Maybe I should have put them in
squares.
the middle as the free squares, but. All right.
So are we just yelling them out, or?
Sure, we can make this a group effort. Since I feel like, can you name that dude?
All right, it's Mittermeier, Royenthal, Oberstein, Mecklinger.
I thought he was
Waltz
or something. I thought his name started with a W.
Oh. We probably should have had someone that knew all
this.
Okay, so after him is Bittenfield, for sure.
Yeah, so after Bittenfield, like those 4 guys in a row look identical.
Okay, wait. Then the dude after Mecklinger is not Valen.
Lutzen Valen?
Oh man, see, this is. Look.
No, I think that's Kempf.
This is also the problem with German names, is that at a certain point they just all start sounding the same.
Yes.
Okay, but like, dude with the Reed Richards stripes is Kessler.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
So the gray hair is not Fahrenheit, right? Because.
Right.
Yeah, Fahrenheit's on the
Yeah, white hair,
right. Who's that goatee?
And then Hilda.
Really only have Oberstein.
Fuck if I don't know.
Yeah.
Who has a goatee? What?
Is that Schneider?
Oh, is that a shadow? Sorry. Look at this
Schneider
with a goatee. Okay. Wait, then you have 2 dudes with mustaches? That's not helpful.
No, so you see the one guy looks like a porn star, and the other guy...
Well, one of them... Yeah, the other guy has like a perv mustache. This guy has like a legit.
The other guy has like a Chicago mustache.
Perv mustache is Mecklinger.
Yeah. So yeah, I got up to Oberstein, and that was about as far as I got personally. And I knew Fahrenheit and Hilda. At the end,
I think at this point we're maybe all sitting at roughly 50 to 70% on the OP, which. Yeah. I mean,
that's better than I was expecting, to be honest.
None of us could get all of them. I am like definitely 100% sure on about half of
totally. I mean, I think that says something too. The fact that the show did such a great job of slowly introducing characters, so that you could, kind of just get a feel for them, right? Like if you introduced this entire cast in the first episode, you'd be like, who the fuck are all these people?
Yeah, I think any of the characters that got any screen time at all, I I recognize. Everybody else has basically been like, we saw them get introduced and like that was about it. We haven't actually like seen them really do anything.
Yeah.
The one thing I would count against them is that they did a really bad job of differentiating female characters, because for some reason, for the life of me, I can't separate Jessica Edwards, Frederica Greenhill, and Hilda, whatever her name is.
They all have short.
There's only 3 of them.
I mean, there's only 3 of them, but they're all blondes, which feels like a very, or in that same like ballpark.
About Countess Westphal.
Yeah. Look, somebody on the character design had a thing for blondes.
Short blonde hair. It's the same. It's kind of the same haircut too. Well, Frederica has a hat on.
Yeah,
still.
But it's still basically the same haircut.
I mean,
she's got a military haircut.
Is that they all have the same haircut, or is that just what was in style at the time? Because I mean, fuck, even Reinhard starts.
Reinhard has the same haircut.
Same haircut.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But, I'd say decent job, all said and done. So I am now.
I think FPA side is probably.
I'm going to. Did you guys already have the FPA?
No, we don't have. We don't have that one.
No, I don't think we have that one.
Okay. Give me one moment. This is
That one's a bit tougher because we don't get face shots in that ending sequence.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
it's just like a big shot at the end.
This is great radio. Listening to us.
Well, we can share it. People can play
fumble. Okay.
All right, left to right. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, Edwin Fisher. I think the next guy's Patorichev.
Sure.
And then Murai.
Murai, yes, like the only dude.
And then the 2 dudes in the back are what Poplin and Kodev.
Poplin, yes. Then we have
and then Frederica,
Julian, and then Dusty Attenborough. Right.
Dusty Attenborough, Shenkop. Who's the dude next to Shenkop?
That guy, I have no idea. But then it's
Kazunu and his wife and kids. But then who's that blonde dude on the very right?
Yeah. No idea. I have not the slightest. Like, that guy, the 2 people next to Kazunu, I have no idea who they are.
Okay, so...
Absolutely not.
Kazunu's mystery cabal for now. So. That's actually went better than I thought. I thought we'd have trouble with the FPA because they all wear the same uniform.
Those kids in the corner?
Yeah.
They have.
They've shown up a bit, like, just a little bit. When he's transferred to Iserlohn, they're there. His wife and kids, who will probably die at some point or something. I don't know.
For me, I didn't know anybody on the left up to Frederica. I don't know who those people are.
I'm surprised you got Murai and Popochev or whatever his name is. I totally forgot those 2 dudes. Also, looking at this now, I'm surprised Bukok is not in the ED.
Yeah, Bukok or right?
I think this is meant to be like Yang's squad, though, right?
I guess not to go back to the prior topic, I just want to give a brief shout out because we never had the chance. Bukok is a pretty cool dude. He's all right.
Bukok
when he
Fork
yells him into a coma.
Yes, owns Andrew Fork so hard he goes into a coma. Yes, we don't know we don't know his credentials as an actual leader of men, but as a person, Bukok is all right.
I get the impression Bukok is at least a good leader of men. I don't know about a military commander, but I'm sure the troops are behind him that are working directly under him. But
sure, yeah. But speaking of wild speculation about Kazelnu's family, so we're gonna roll into our final topic here, which may be a doozy. We'll see, depending on how much. We'll see how deep we go into this, depending on how much time we have left. But we wanted to cap this off, our big final season extravaganza with the wild speculation corner. I brought you all here because I wanted us all to speculate on where things are going to go from here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Just what are your completely unbased theories on how things develop from here? Who lives, who dies, how and when and all that good shit.
So here's the one theory I've been developing recently, that with the disruption of the politicians and the lack of solid leadership at the top, I think Trunick is going to try and make himself the president of the FPA, like to abolish the idea of the High Council, because it seems like there's not much of the High Council members left.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, I think I could definitely see him try to turn, or I could see him calling himself the president, to keep up with the auspices of, oh, we're still a democracy. You're just electing
Right.
one person now. But it will totally be like a power move to consolidate all the power to himself. And honestly, I feel like he'd probably pull it off too, because we've really Job Trunicht is kind of similar to Reinhardt, and we've only seen
Yeah.
him move
Plus,
upwards.
he's got that Earth cult vote.
Yeah. Apparently, the rather large Earth cult voting demographic that we were not aware of.
Yeah. I do want to bring up that because we saw Boris Konev taking, we saw him, like, ferrying people to Earth, but then also later we saw him back at Phezzan, means Earth is totally there somewhere, right? Or he was just, like, secretly ferrying Earth cult people into the Empire, and I'm not sure which it is.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point. Like, the only thing we know about the Earth cult is that they think that Earth is behind Empire lines, but we actually don't know where Earth is still.
You think that would be something easily, like, well, because, the legend of the FPA is that he expanded outwards, so it has to be that it would be in Empire lands.
I do
Like-
think.
I mean, who can say?
Like, unless there's some kind of... Yeah.
the FPA did split off from the
Yeah.
Empire.
Sorry, Joe, what were you going to say?
I do think we are due to see a lot more of Phezzan,
Right.
and probably sooner rather than later. I'm guessing,
But we did...
just as kind of a.
Yeah.
I feel like there needs to be kind of a bridge between, and this is just my gut instinct, totally baseless, just on like how stories normally work. I feel like there needs to be kind of almost like a palate cleanser bridge between the Civil War stuff before we get back into the actual FPA versus the Empire conflict.
Probably.
And Phezzan seems like a pretty easy way to distract us for a bit as we kind of get our, because at this we kind of left off at the end of season 1, just as the civil wars were ending on both sides, and I think it's
there
going
was
to take
that
a little.
scene with Phezzan sending, like basically spies to either side.
Right, yeah, there was that too. And I'm assuming it's going to take a little bit of time for presumably Reinhardt and Yang, well, not Yang, but maybe it's going to be Trunicht, I don't know, consolidating power on the FPA side, and Reinhardt kind of, I mean, at this point, Reinhardt is the leader of the Empire, right? That's where we've left off.
Right.
Yes.
By, the de facto leader, if you will, because the actual leader is still like a 10-year-old boy or whatever. But
Yeah.
Another thing is, if it is going to involve Phezzan, they said a long time ago that the taking of Iserlohn might have been too much of a power shift to the FPA. So I wonder if things are going to come back to Iserlohn.
I could see. I think Iserlohn will figure in prominently later in the series. I don't know necessarily how, but
That's where Yang is. So, like, the Grand Bishop of the Earth Cult did say, like, within 3 years, I will punish all of those who left Earth or something. And, like, timeline-wise, it's already been almost a year.
Yeah, we're
Time
going to
moves
see
pretty
another
quick
time
in this
skip.
show.
Like next episode. I mean, I think we will definitely. I think we'll definitely see more
I have
time
no
skips
clue what's
within the
happening
next,
next
80 episodes or whatever. But
I mean, I could see that happening to kick off season 2.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a good
Yeah.
place to do it.
Just like both sides to take a break for like a year, just to recover or something.
well,
Yeah,
that's the other
it's
thing. Even
together,
just
yeah.
I was talking about consolidating power, but like all the losses they took, in the past,
Yeah.
20 episodes or
Yeah.
whatever, and the Civil War too, where they're you're doubling your losses in the Civil War, right? So
Right.
I definitely agree with you, Jel, to go back a bit on the Phezzan angle. Like, Iro and I have continuously joked that Phezzan is kind of like this weird one-trick pony during most of season 1, where they're just kind of like off in the darkness, like snickering, be like, oh, everything's going according to plan. We're gonna play both sides. And every scene with Phezzan is basically just Rubinsky looking about as shady as Oberstein, but 10 times more sleazy about it. And like, you think that eventually all that buildup has to lead to something, right? And Well, that's the thing, right? Like right now, it doesn't feel like it feels like Phezzan is gaining power, but it still feels like economic power. I'm kind of curious if eventually Phezzan translates that into military
one thing
power
that stood
in
out to
some
me
way,
in
because
D&T is they did seem to make a bigger deal out of Phezzan, like in the intros when they're like, there are 3 powers in the galaxy, and they almost spoke about Phezzan like on the same level as the FPA and the Empire in D&T. I mean, I don't know if that means anything or if that was just
you frame it like that. That is
whatever. But it feels like they made
Might have just been
feels like they made a bigger deal, and D&T being made like after with hindsight. I wonder if we're really digging deep for clues here. I do wonder if
I feel like they were just talking about them being big, just like how, like in like the 1600s and 1700s, how the Netherlands was a great power, not because they had any kind of military, because they had
a lot of money,
great trading empire. That could be something just like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless, we have yet to see Phezzan play their hand. So whatever it's coming, it's probably going to be pretty big, and they've been building up to it for so long. Like, I feel like you couldn't do an entire like season 2 of Legend of the Galactic Heroes just being more of Phezzan.
We have to at least we have to at least see more.
I think it has to come from
the moving parts behind the scenes of what they're up to, even if they don't make their big play this season. We have to at least get more. We need to see more to build up to whatever their big play is going to be.
Yeah. So, do we want to talk about the ED?
We have to. I think the healthy thing to do would be to talk about our feelings on ED.
I'm really scared about the ED. I love the ED song. Like, I have that play like in the background all the time. I love that track. It's so good. Like that, just that good, mournful, melancholy old
lyrics. Everyone fading away and leaving only Julian.
What is it?
To face Reinhard.
Like, I swear. Oh man. Like, oh god, if this is like, I'm just saying, if like we get some fucking like Infinity War, like Yang Wenli holding a cup of tea and he's like, Julian, I don't feel so good.
It's like, everybody else fading out just feels like a directorial choice. But I feel like the shot where it's very specifically shows Yang and Julian together, and then the camera kind of pans over to Julian and stays with him, and it's Julian turning to look at Reinhardt. That's the scary part, right? Like,
right, yeah,
because that seems very deliberate.
ED implies so much, dude. Yes. Holy shit. Okay, I don't want to say this out loud to jinx it, but
it just seems so early for such a. I mean, I guess once again we're saying like it's like, yeah.
I guess it's a thing about. So that's the thing that kind of fascinates me about Julian, right? Is that if we didn't watch that ED, if we didn't know about that ED, I think we'd all just treat Julian as like, oh, he's like that, he's that cute kid that hangs out with Yang and like takes care of him, and like he's grown up to become his own man, but because of the way the ED frames him, like, what do you think is in store for Julian? Like,
right, so
is he going to become Yang 2.0?
Like, is there going to be a time skip? Is something bad going to happen? Yang dies, and then we get like a time skip. And that's
don't even say it out loud, man. Don't even say it.
Here's
face that reality.
Here's what I would just add with that. So I don't know if you guys remember very early on when I started watching this, I asked the question of, is there room in this world for good people like Yang and Kircheis? And the answer to that question has been very interesting, especially since we've seen the answer was no for Kircheis, at least on the Empire side. And Jessica Edwards, another good example.
Jessica Edwards on the FDA side.
And that thematically makes me more worried for Yang than anything. It is interesting because I don't think I don't ever really think of Legend of Galactic Heroes as cynical, or like I don't think they would ever like flat out say no, good people cannot be successful in this world, but it is kind of saying that it's very difficult, and maybe the answer is no, but that it's still kind of worth trying. I think that's what the kind of overall message that they're shaping up is. Like, it's still
I mean, it seems to understand that, like, if you're just a jerk to everyone, in some ways you will get ahead faster than them.
Right. And that we can kind of only hope that good people like Yang are able to have enough impact in the time that they have, that kind of message. I still think it's kind of they're still going for a positive message, but part of that message is a reality that, people who are going to be, pragmatic and Machiavellian and whatnot are going to be the ones that are going to...
I'm terrified that the ending of the show is just everyone has, like, humanity has destroyed itself, and the remnants are just there to suffer under, like, terrible circumstances, and then we just zoom out because it's just another page in the history of the galaxy.
I don't think the show would go there, but I do think
No.
Just to tie back to Julian, which is I guess what I was trying to get to. We see Julian kind of soaking up all of Yang's knowledge, but we also see Julian, I would almost go as far as to say he has a little Reinhardt in him.
A lot too, right?
In that,
Julian,
I think he's shaping up to be, when he grows up, to be more of a man of action than perhaps, or maybe a little more proactive than Yang might choose to be. Because Yang, he's doing all he can to do what he feels is right. But what Yang really wants to do is read history books and drink tea, right? But because he has such a strong, sense of right and wrong, and he feels obligated to do the things that, put in the work that he's doing. Whereas I kind of get, and this is again just pure speculation, I get the impression that Julian, is, he's he would be different in that position. So, could we get somebody with that mix of, the wisdom that he's learned from Yang over the years, but someone who's willing to, take charge, and who wants to take charge of this, the situation, that would be interesting. So just throwing that out there.
I think, I certainly hope so. I think that's an interesting direction. The thing with Julian is, I don't think I would necessarily want him to just become Yang 2.0. Also, I don't think the show is supporting that idea anyways, because frankly, like, Julian is a good kid. He's smart. Like, we've all seen that, but we've yet to see him absorbing, like, Yang's tactical knowledge. Like, the thing about Yang is that not only is he a good person, he's imparting his morality onto Julian. And I think that says so much about Yang, that he thinks the most important thing Julian can learn from him is how to be a good person.
To be a good person.
But, and I think in many ways, I think Yang would actually even be hesitant to teach Julian how to be better at war, because it's just so what he does not want for Julian. I think it's just, like, as Iro has said so many times, the inherent tragedy maybe of Julian's character is that the tragedy of the war and the era he is born into will, like Yang, force him to take up that mantle.
I'm so sad. I was so sad when he became a soldier, because there's a line early on where he's like, "Oh, Yang says that by the time I can become a soldier, I won't need to." But then he just becomes
That's
a
definitely
soldier.
going to happen.
It's just, like, low key, really
We're
sad.
kind of waiting for that big, like, loss of innocence moment for Julian. Like, yes, he's twisted now, but he still hasn't really been forced to confront what this war is, and I'm just deeply anxious about when that's coming.
I know.
He's such a good kid, but it's like Jel said, he does kind of have a harder edge to him than Yang does. Like Yang doesn't even carry a gun. I mean, he says that because he can't shoot for shit. Whereas,
But also he doesn't want
to carry a gun. Like, I'm sure if Yang actually put his mind to it, he could probably learn, but he just doesn't want to. Whereas Julian actively picks it up. He actively wants to be better with a gun, That's why he's taking lessons from Shenkop and stuff. I think, like, again, I'm not saying, oh, Julian's gonna, like, take a dark turn and become, like, ruthless and pragmatic, but I think, like Jel said, I wonder if Julian will become, like, the next step in the message that...
Yeah, I think if Yang ever dies, like, Julian's the one we're gonna have to pin our hopes on.
I think it's not just that, but I think it's that, like, if Yang is the message about, like, how important it is to fight for democracy, or how important it is to... You know what? I'll put it this way. if Yang is all about how important it is to defend democracy, I wonder if Julian will be how important it is to actively fight for democracy.
We got a lot of episodes to go, but so it's all
who
very.
Could say?
I can't wait to find out,
man. Who could say we're only 25% through?
Yeah.
So yeah, what other characters do we want to just baselessly speculate about? You mentioned one of you guys mentioned something a little while back about how bad people, who do jerkish, selfish things get ahead in life, and
yep.
I, however, think that while that is true, I think eventually, and I'm not saying now, I'm not even saying in the next season, I think eventually this show's message is going to be about how if you do that your whole life,
I hope so.
Eventually things are going to turn around on you. Like, you screw over enough people.
I hope so.
Like, even if you do it strategically, even if you do it with perfect Machiavellian like grace, you screw over enough people, you ruin enough people's lives, it will come around.
It'll come for you.
I don't know when is that coming for Reinhard. I don't know. This could easily happen in the last episode, but I think a reckoning will come for Reinhard eventually. This show.
Reinhard gets stabbed in the street the last episode.
I don't think this show is going to end with, and so Reinhard became God Emperor of all of space. The end. Because that's not how history works. Even the best autocratic emperors in world history, eventually their empires fall. Eventually, because they are empires, because they are autocratic, eventually they pass on absolute rule to somebody who is not as capable, who is not as competent, who is not as charismatic, and things begin to fall apart. It happened to the Golden Bomb dynasty. I think it will happen to Reinhard's dynasty.
Yeah.
So, I think pretty much anybody dying in this show is fair game. I would not be shocked by anybody dying at this point. But
sure,
I do think if we kill the entire cast, the last one to go will be Reinhardt. That's kind of just my gut instinct, and it could be that in the last episode, I made the Julius Caesar comparison. Maybe he's going to be the one being stabbed by his senators or something like that at the end. But he definitely needs. He definitely passed a point of no return, I think, on this last. Once you start murdering children, it's kind of hard. You can't really redeem yourself after that one.
Right.
So I have a feeling in the immediate future we're going to see more of Reinhardt embracing that, basically doing whatever Oberstein tells him to do and kind of embracing that side of himself. And maybe later he'll regret that and try to make up for it, but you can't really make up for it. So, I mean, poetic justice is going to demand he's going to have to die at some point. So, but I just don't think, I don't think that's going to happen until the very end, if it does.
Yeah. Marlin, you were saying something?
Yeah, and once again, I wonder how Hilda is going to factor into this, because, she's obviously not going to be a bit player forever, right? One would think they wouldn't put her in the opening and just have her do nothing.
Yeah, I actually do have a theory about Hilda, and that's based off what we see in the final episode. I think we all can say it is no exaggeration to say that Reinhard perhaps sometimes leans on his emotional crutches quite hard, being Annerose and Kircheis. Mm-hmm. And with Kircheis dying and Annerose saying, we need to spend some time apart. We need to take a break as siblings.
It's a really weird thing to do.
I think that because here's the thing, right? He has no more emotional crutches. Look, I like his admirals. Reinhard is not going to be like, Mittermeier, am I doing the right thing?
He's not going to go get a beer with Mittermeier.
Right. And he's certainly not. And even if he tried to get a beer with Oberstein would be like,
murder more children,
brain cells or something. Oberstein is that jerk that wouldn't order a drink and then make you feel bad that
a ruler must stay uninebriated.
You could start quoting the Prince again, and.
But yeah, to get back to the Hilda stuff, real quick, y'all saw how Reinhard was drinking both his and Kircheis' glass of wine in episode 25, right? Do you think Reinhardt's going to start to develop a booze problem?
I did think that when I saw that. That seemed
very... already basically got Young is on the edge.
He dilutes it with tea. It's fine. He just needs a little pep in his step every morning. But I'm just saying, let's just keep an eye out on like Reinhardt's drink count over this.
Well, I think that's going to be the
Yeah.
interesting thing for me to see with Reinhardt. Is he going to just fully embrace his new role, or is he going to still feel regret? Like I said, at some point, is he going to try to atone for what he's done, or is he just going to just be full on villain? I think it would be more interesting for him to kind of bear that weight and be conflicted about it for the rest of his life, as opposed to just like, yeah, go ahead, G.
Yeah, I would love for him to bear that weight, but I think the way Reinhardt talks at the end of episode 26, honestly, I think he's going to double down, because he has that conversation at the very end with himself where he's like, now I have to win the universe. Because
he will in the immediate future, but I'm thinking like longer term.
Maybe. I just think that because he's now all in on this, like, if I don't win the universe, then Kircheis' death will have been for nothing. Like, I feel like he's going to double down now on, like, I must become the Kaiser at all costs. Like, I must make my perception of Kircheis'
like, are we going to see old man Reinhardt with his drinking problem after he's conquered the galaxy? He's like haunted by the ghosts of his I don't know.
Like, it would be a little cliche, but like you notice like how like all the other Kaisers, like, oh, they eventually became decadent and started drinking a bunch and having sex with women that were way too young. And I'm not saying Reinhardt is going to go full despot, but I think like as time goes on and as the realities of rule become increasingly more difficult and he has nobody to rely on, the path is definitely open. And so speaking to that, I think because Reinhardt has kind of already laid down the foundations of a friendship with Hilda, like seemingly a genuine friendship, or at least, something resembling that. I do wonder, and it's a little unfair just to be, it's because she's a woman, but I do think that
there's only so many female characters in this show.
Right. I think that Reinhardt may, like, or to put it the other way around, I think Hilda might become Reinhardt's next emotional crutch. Like, the person that he overly relies on to maintain emotional stability.
I mean, I thought they were going to hook up the first time they talked, so...
That quick, huh?
What about Baroness Westphal?
Well, I didn't think they were going to hook up, like, actually hook up at that point, but the thought popped into my head, like, the second that they met.
Right.
Like, I could see this...
Yeah, I think they obviously laid the foundation there with, she's a smart, independent, noble woman who, like,
knows the actual shape of the Empire and doesn't buy into the propaganda, would theoretically make her a good fit for someone like Reinhardt, who also theoretically doesn't care for pretense or BS.
So what about Young and Frederica?
I think that's happening. Like, honestly, like, now that, I hate to say it, but like, now that Jessica's out of the picture, like there's probably an episode of Frederica where, like, after she's gotten over the death of her dad, is going to be like,
how
make
much
this happen.
How much younger is she?
I think it's like 7 years or so, 7 or 8.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think she's like
he was like
a junior officer or whatever during.
He was in his early 20s during Alpha Seal.
Yeah,
I want to say he was like 21 or 22 when she was 14.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
It's not that weird.
The official test for how young is too young is you divide your age in half.
He doesn't remember her.
Divide your age in half
was young,
and
so
add
it's not
7.
Like he's like, oh yeah.
Divide your age in half and add 7, and that's how young is too young. That's how you figure that out.
Yeah, exactly.
That would definitely qualify then.
Oh boy.
If 7 or 8 years is what we're saying, and he's like in his 30s.
Well, I think Earth Cult will be more important in the next.
That's the thing I'm weird about with the Earth Cult is it feels too weird if all of a sudden the Earth Cult if the Earth Cult like Space Fortress rises out of the ocean.
I suppose you're right.
It's like, surprise, surprise! We were building this in secret the whole time. We have a military capable of matching the FPA. It's like that.
I don't know what's going on, man.
Yeah, I kind of hope that doesn't happen. That would be too much.
Yeah. Do we have any last minute speculations, or do we just want to start wrapping this up?
I think we covered most of it.
Covered most of it. Yeah.
All right. in that case, I think we're gonna call this after for you, the listener, after about 3 hours. I think we're gonna call this a podcast.
We'll have all
Yeah.
the commenters making fun of us on our predictions and how
Yeah.
wrong we are.
So, yes, of course, I just want to lay it out right there, please, to all the commenters. No spoilers, not even hints at it. I know you guys love, I know you guys love telling us
Slide.
about, like, the things that happen, and you guys love, hinting at things to come. And sometimes we do appreciate that, but this time,
Thank you for your support.
yes, and of course,
But-
thank you for listening. Just for the sake of this speculation aspect of the podcast, just let us speculate baselessly. The reason why I did this portion of the podcast is because I think it would be kind of fun if we do this every season finale podcast, and we kind of update our speculation, and we kind of look back at what we thought was going to happen. We kind of look back and laugh at, like, oh man, I can't believe we thought that was going to happen.
Right. Like Artemis necklace stuff.
Yeah, as an example. Very early in this show, we thought, oh man, the Artemis necklace is going to be a big deal later on.
Right.
And now it's literally jack shit.
Yang just threw some ice cubes at it.
So let us have some fun with our dumb, baseless speculation. We just please ask you guys to keep it spoiler-free. With that said, I just want to thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for sticking with us this long. Iro, Marlin, Gel, thank you guys for accompanying, me on this journey.
Mhm.
Thank you, High Dive.
Yes, thank you, High Dive. Of course, you can watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes on High Dive, and
Soon to be on VRV and maybe Crunchyroll.
Yeah, that would be
That would be
cool.
sweet.
Hopefully that happens. Let's see what else. As always, you can listen to the podcast on the blog. You can listen to it on iTunes, Podbean, and wherever podcasts are bought and sold, I guess.
Aggregated.
Yes. You can listen to the podcast in video form on YouTube at the GLORIO Blog's YouTube account, which you can find if you just Google the GLORIO Blog YouTube, because we don't have a URL. So, hey, if you really loved us wildly speculating,
friends.
About bullshit, then please like and subscribe. What else? Yes. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, leave a review. You can follow us at the GLORIO Blog on Twitter. You can listen to our sister podcast, the GLORIO Chat, where we talk about, anime that aired this year instead. And yeah, I think that's it. So I think that's gonna be the wrap up for our season 1 finale podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, thank you to my fellow travelers amongst the Sea of Stars.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope to bring on Marlin Jelliho. I can bring you guys back onto the podcast sometime in the near future.
Yeah, love to.
It was fun getting you guys here to, add your thoughts to the mix. Iro, as always, thank you especially for being my navigator, my collector of screen caps, my collector of titles, because I'm too lazy to do that on my own. And with that,
All right. Yeah.
thank you all for listening. And next time we'll be talking about season 2.
Yep.
So I'll see you all once again amongst the Sea of Stars.